I'd like to reconvene
Email
the.
sent
Oh,
out.
for the email, yeah, that's separate,
All right, I'd like to reconvene the September 27, 2018 work session meeting. Next up on the agenda, new business. We have considered moving the October 9 meeting to October 10 at 6:30, so we're moving it one day. I think we've talked to somebody.
I don't know anything about it.
Okay. So we're just moving it one day from a Tuesday to a Wednesday, and that's the.
The
next day.
The reason is, I mean,
Just
I have, unfortunately, I have my chemo treatments on Tuesday at 1 o'clock, but, last meeting, I had some issues that they have addressed, and it didn't get started at 3, it takes 5 hours, so, that made it until 8, so I couldn't make the meeting. So this week, it was the same thing, it's a 1 if there's any issues, plus it's also, they moved it from Valentine, I have to go to White Presbyterian, so the traffic and everything.
You don't have to explain, I was just
Yeah,
kind
no,
of something else, but
That's the
I
reason,
appreciate it.
so that's
Okay.
why if we
So that time
move it
worked better.
today, it'll be-
But going forward, we look at, that even though it doesn't seem to conflict with any, because we
Yeah.
look at your schedule and stuff like
I'm
that.
saying, if
so.
we can, have that, that's the reason why I
Right.
requested.
Okay.
Change
All right.
it.
And
Please
it's funny
confirm
because
with
what
Robert
first
on that.
occurred to me was because we were kind of having the same conversation, sort of, at the same time, about while there are issues that are sort of hot topics of people attending, should we consider amending the meeting schedule to hold meetings, at least the first meeting of the month at Banks and go back to that again? So I don't know the answer, but that's why I thought maybe staff kind of was thinking ahead. I wasn't sure if it was related. But okay, so that's a little separate, but while we're on the topic,
Well, and then it also was because, like I said, the last meeting, I would have been late, and the call-in procedure wouldn't have worked because I was, sitting there with 10 other people that are getting, I couldn't be on speakerphone, and, it wasn't the proper thing.
So do we want to also change it? Do we have time to change it to just make it over there? Because given that we moved the
Yes, you
one
would have.
topic.
You would, and I can put out a notice
Okay,
saying
so
that
that's
the
gonna
meeting
start over
location
there. Changed.
has changed to Banks on October the 10th, because that'll give me 7 days.
Yeah.
I got it.
Are you okay with that? I mean, because we assume that there may be more.
Sense to
Yeah.
them to start it and go over there.
Yep, so we'll make that change as
Just have
well.
it ready that way, and that's it.
Okay.
That's just for this one meeting, as far as.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
and unless we know ahead of time that something's sensitive, that people are gonna start showing up and we get in a
And
sense.
it costs us $25.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
$25.
Okay.
We need to make a motion.
Yeah, I need to
Yeah,
make a
we need a
motion to move the October 9 meeting to October 10, 6:30 PM at Banks Presbyterian
Fellowship Hall.
Fellowship Hall. Further discussion? All's in favor? Motion passes. Please let Robert know.
Did we amend the regular meeting schedule? Is that what we did?
No, just this meeting, just the October 9th meeting.
Which would be a change.
Regular.
Which would be a change.
Meeting
Mhm.
schedule, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yes.
just want to be sure.
Okay.
Barbie, just, have you confirmed that it's available that date by chance?
I thought I did, but I can, let me send him a quickie text. I thought I had, but
What's that?
Confirm the bank.
confirmed to make
Okay.
sure it was available.
Well, I mean, we can put a
Contingency or something? on the
contingency if it's
motion?
not, then in a motion that we, a location to be determined, and as long as you can get it out in a timely manner, that would.
Yeah, as long as I have 7 days, I can change the location.
Yeah, so, yeah.
Do we need to redo that then?
Well,
No,
we'll make a motion to have it there with the contingency to move it to another location if the bank's,
I know.
It's not available.
Right, so do we need to
Yes.
redo that?
Yeah, if you don't
Understand.
mind, that would just for clarity.
So make a motion
just
to
clarify.
move the October 9 meeting to October 10th, move it to Banks, and if Banks is not available, to allow clerk to find a acceptable location, and as long as there's enough time to notify the public to let us know that way, so
At 6:30 PM.
at 6:30 PM. And that's a regular scheduled meeting. All's in favor?
Right.
I'm just calculating. Today's the 27th. Will you find out fairly
Yeah, I'm finding out. I'm checking right now.
Because I'd feel more comfortable if we were within that 7-day period, right? Which I think there's time. If you check it out, then that's fine.
We'll have to do it within the 7 days period.
Either way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
if not, we'll hold it here. I mean,
Yeah,
it
or
is-
you hold it here and then we
just have
can, we can move
Yeah,
it,
we have-
even
we
if
have
we
plenty of
hold
time.
them, open the meeting here and there's a lot of people that show up, and by that time we will have another location.
So if it's
Yeah.
okay, I'd like to just amend that motion to say, and, decide on, but at least have the meeting date decided 7 days in advance of the meeting date.
I think
Just so that
that's
we
what
stay
it was
within
in
the
there,
statute,
yeah,
right?
yeah. No, so-
Should you know.
Pursuant to statute, and I'll put the statute
Right,
number.
just to be
Okay.
sure.
Okay, all's in favor
Aye.
with the amended motion?
Yeah.
Okay. And, okay, motion passes. Next up is consideration, adoption of general fund budget ordinance amendment OR 2018-09-03, legal fees. Is Christine not,
She's not here, I can present it real
Okay.
fast. Basically, what we've done, we've.
Chris, sorry,
Um,
it's official.
We've spent about, and I'm using estimates here, about $18,000 to date for legal fees, and that's a good 50% of our budget, and we're not 50% into our year. So we've still got money that's available for the next, month or two. I just didn't want to get ahead of ourselves with our expenses on legal fees, so I needed to go ahead and get an amendment done for increasing those fees. And I've anticipated what I think it's going to cost for the rest of the year. And I am overestimating just a hair because I don't want to have to come back before you all and ask for more money. So this should be what's needed for the remainder of the year. If you have any specific questions about how I've come up with estimates, I'll feel free to entertain those questions, but
Well, what are the biggest costs you see?
we have a lawsuit that's pending right now that has costed about, for July, it looks like about $7,000, and then another 7 to 10 in August. And those are general numbers, and so that's where majority of our expenditures.
So is that
So it started
considered?
with the lawsuit?
The increase
The
in
costs, yeah. It started with the lawsuit?
Well, it started, so we had some increases in July. And I've sent you all of the copies of the invoices that y'all should have been able to look through and see what exact estimates were for what purposes, but
Because I can tell you from right now, since it seems we're gonna go there, I will. Just between May 31st and July 10th, just the 6 weeks while there was no meeting in session, there was expenditure of $16,983 on lawyers' fees. So, and I'm not even talking, the lawsuit was filed on July 22nd. These are legal fees, and I'm wondering how they were sanctioned. Were they all sanctioned by the administrator?
They were
They were all sanctioned by, so the
Chris
administrator.
Robertson, the interim at the time, authorized me to do the work that I was doing.
And she has the ability to spend $16,983 on her own with her own discretion? Because last I looked at the statute, everybody under the council goes by the direction of the council. And I don't know of any policy where someone can spend $16,000, almost $17,000 on their own. I see a $5,000 policy to discretion, but I don't see one for $17,000.
I don't
No,
know
you
about
jumped
any
in,
policies.
so that, I'm just asking. And I know that, I could tell that the rhetoric would be something about the lawsuit. The lawsuit was caused because this council found my presence so egregious that instead of deciding to work with it and see what we could do to come to the table, you threatened to arrest and have me replaced, counter to what the law stated. And I tried my best to inform you all of the law many times. I don't even want to go there. But since you brought it up, I was prepared to just kind of let this go by. But if you really want to make that talking point, I'll match it. Why is it that $16,000 to $17,000 was spent without a meeting or an authorization for the purchase?
Well, let me go back to, let me interject there, that I believe that when you are acting as a acting administrator, you brought on someone through a straw poll, you asked the council to see if you could hire, well, this is just one issue.
We're talking about the
I
budget.
know.
I have no
All right.
trouble meeting you on that one.
Okay,
but we're
well, hold
talking
on
about
a
the
second,
budget.
I'm gonna get there and stuff,
Okay.
let me
Just wanna make
speak.
sure.
Okay, so you were inclined to take a straw poll and determine that.
I'm surprised you're bringing this up.
Well, that's fine,
It doesn't
because you
look
wrote it,
great.
but it's fine, but you inclined to put a straw poll, it's all recorded that you asked council to add an individual, and all I asked to do is to bring it up to council meeting, but it was decided that you were able to bring on this other individual, which was certainly, I'm
By the
sure,
way,
over
this is
$5,000,
personnel.
but
Just so you know.
I know,
Just so you know, in case you are worried about lawsuits.
I'm not worried about,
Personnel.
you're
That's
right,
right.
but it is a record that it is a public record that you sent out the straw poll, if I
Yes.
remember. And then all I was
hired
asking,
Julie
hold on a
Rothrock?
second, all I was asking is that, so that's one issue, but secondly.
No, it's not, it's not. It's a
Well,
discussion
it
point.
is that,
If it's a
but
discussion point, then you
we
need to
had
make
a
it
discussion.
one. No, you
We-
can't just
we-
pull, no, listen, I've heard you.
Excuse
for
me,
years.
I'm speaking.
Well, you're not.
Excuse me, I'm speaking.
It doesn't, I'm
You're
sorry.
out of order.
Go ahead and hammer.
Yes, so you're
You
just gonna
can't-
keep
You're not
talking?
going to spring things up and then not let people respond
Well,
either.
I'm
That's-
not done talking yet.
That's not good protocol.
I waited till you
had
got
one
done.
point.
I got waited
One
till you got,
point.
well, and I'm continuing on my point, and then you can respond.
Go ahead.
Okay, so
I don't know
please,
what your
I would.
point is.
Well, my point is you
I
were
still don't know how it's related.
you brought up a personnel issue with Chris being able to direct our attorney. When we were out of session, Kim and I.
That's what you're arguing.
When we were out of session, Kim and I had, I put out a straw poll the next day, I believe. I asked you if it was okay to put a straw poll to find out where the majority of council was on this issue, if this was even allowed to do.
I had a
because,
policy backing
excuse me, I would like you to be
I want you to speak the
completely
truth.
quiet.
I want-
You know what? I want you to speak the
I
truth.
want
When
you
you
to
talk
speak the
about me having you arrested, I can't arrest you, for the record.
You didn't make that motion?
Excuse me, no, I did not.
didn't?
No.
You didn't make
The motion I made is to have you removed because you weren't cooperating with us. So, and here's the
didn't
point,
plead with the
excuse
deputies and
me.
ask them to come and get
No,
you. I think you need to listen to the audio.
no, here is the thing, and
And
please stop speaking until
As long as
I
you
am
speak
finished
truth,
with this.
I
I will
will let
speak
you
the
speak.
truth, and as long as you were saying I was having you arrested. Here's how the process works, and I confirmed this with others, mayors and other people who preside over things. When you have a government that is operating, and the majority of the government says in a municipality meeting, there is a presider of the meeting. All he can do is, if there is a disruption and a continual disruption, is ask for the county officers to step in and remove that person. They're not arresting them. They're
That's
just
what they
removing.
would have
Oh,
done.
excuse me.
No,
And right, please,
That's
Mary,
right.
please. I'm going to ask you kindly to let me finish.
As long
all
as you
right?
speak the truth.
I am speaking the truth. Now, once that officer takes action and they ask to remove you, if you choose to disobey their direction of what they're giving you, that's where an arrest could come in. Because now, and Nick, you can probably confirm this, that
Can you finish
when,
your first
well,
sentence?
no,
Because you're
well,
going
hold
to
on
Nick
a
and I haven't
second,
heard your
excuse me.
sentence yet.
All I was asking is to have, and I can have anyone in the.
But you were breaking the law.
But, no, I'm not.
Yes, you were. You were
No.
asking me to leave a meeting.
No, I
I'm
was.
not done. I know it's my turn. I
Wait,
guess.
wait a minute.
You
wait
were
a minute.
asking me to leave
Mary,
a meeting, and
Mary.
you had no jurisdiction to ask me to leave.
Well, we had the majority of council that you were
Wasn't enough?
interrupting.
As your lawyers
you were,
told you.
you were
The meeting wasn't
interrupting
enough.
the meeting. You were interrupting the
Having
meeting.
three people in the council did not allow you to do that, and that's
No,
why you've
no,
reversed the decision
I'm sorry.
since then.
There's no
So
reversal.
for you,
No, there was
so
not.
to ask people to ask the deputies to remove me from a
Okay,
meeting.
well, you know what, we're gonna
you have
argue
no
all we want, and we
jurisdiction.
may end up going into
let's go to
we
the
may
truth.
end up going into you're
I-
suing us. We basically gave you what
Just
you
wanted
wanted,
the
we
truth.
gave you your seat as a de facto, and
What
I think I'll
wanted-
start referring to
what I
you
wanted,
as
I
we
have
go forward
100
as a de
signatures
facto.
asking me to stick it out and to stay.
That's fine. You get all the signatures you
talk
want,
about
but the
what I
bottom
want.
line is,
It's not about what I
we
want.
as a council
It's about the
decided,
open.
excuse me, we as a council decided that, okay, what do we do? We're not in session, we can't have an
Investigate the
illegal
law.
meeting.
Follow
We did
the
not,
law.
we
How
did
about
not
that?
break a
Investigate
meeting.
the laws is what I was
Investigate the
charged
law
to do.
is every bit, because the majority of council, being that we are out of council, were saying, look, what do we do? What action do we take?
Then
And
you
we-
obviously got bad legal advice because
well,
obviously
that's
you
your
reversed
opinion.
it.
That's your opinion.
At this
And at the
point,
end of the
you
day,
did.
at the end of
Whether
the day,
if
you
fight
are
the court-
suing us.
Now,
And it,
see, this is the problem though, is that you don't let anyone else speak.
No.
Like, you will just go on and go have.
you're assuming I'm done talking.
I'm not sure what
Well,
you're
go
talking
ahead.
about.
Go ahead,
I'm
speak.
still waiting for you to relate this
Speak,
back to
speak. I did.
this issue. And I
Right.
still don't see how hiring someone under the policy, I was the administrator hired as the administrator. I had the policy saying that I could hire someone, which I did. I had the budget approved. By the way, the policy that was adopted said that if it's approved and in the budget, the administrator has the right to spend it.
And
so there's
what did
I'm
I
not
ask
done yet.
for?
I'm not
What
done.
did I ask for?
It doesn't
In that
matter.
email.
I had
In the email, what did I ask
had
for?
the right
Okay,
to.
okay.
I had the right to, and you let every other administrator do it, and so therefore you were singling me out.
No, I wasn't.
And I'm not done yet.
Okay.
Why? Because I have watched closely, and I know that you have. You let the administrator before me do it, and you've let the administrator since then do it. How is it that we ended up with Miss Julie Rothrock as an employee? Don't answer that. I take that back. It's personnel. Bottom line is, that has occurred over and over and over again, before me and after me. And only with me did you have that issue. When the budget was approved, the policy was clear, and we needed staff. Let me remind you, I was both administrator and planner. I did not have another person in the background, like Ms. Rothrock, doing other work. I was managing that all by myself. So, quite frankly, I think you need to stick to the point here, because the point was, where is it that they were sanctioned to spend $17,000, and your answer to me so far has been, albeit in the most circadian way possible, you're trying to argue that the administrator was allowed to do this, and I have yet to see a policy that allows for $17,000.
It was more than the administrator. I didn't get a chance to finish. As the mayor was pointing out, he asked the administrator to send a straw poll, which she did, and the majority
Straw polls are illegal.
straw polls are in your Rule 26. You're allowed to do them.
Not for major issues, not for expenditures.
You're allowed to do them, and based on the results of the straw poll, I was instructed to investigate this issue. So I had the majority of council, and I had permission from the administrator, or instruction from the administrator.
Do you not, so in your legal opinion, I know because I was here when that rule was established, and it was established for minor issues, and your interpretation of that rule would utterly conflict with the statutes and common law and case law over and over and over again, which says that no decision, major decision, I think if we're talking about the colors on a wall would be one thing, but when you're talking about the expenditure of $17,000 within 6 weeks, I would imagine, let's put it this way, I would feel better if we had legal advice that looked at the rules of procedure and went, that might be pushing the boundary of the statute and case law to allow for that.
What does the rule actually say? Does the rule say?
I was looking up the rule.
Actions taken by staff in between open meetings, which are the result of polling council members to find the opinion of the majority, are actions for which the village staff has assumed responsibility. If warranted, the council shall ratify the action at the next properly held meeting.
Does it not
Is
say
that
that
it?
every member
Excuse
has
me,
to
is that
No,
it?
there's 3 paragraphs to it. It's in
Okay.
your packet. It's
Okay.
Rule
Okay,
26.
so it didn't say anything about minor issues or anything? It doesn't go into that? Okay.
I'm
So
not done.
that's been
No,
decided?
that's not decided.
Pretty much.
There's
Looks like
3
it to me.
months. I mean, there's 3 paragraphs.
Okay, read
Does
it.
it not say that all members of the council need to be asked and not just a straw poll?
We did
Does it not say that?
put it out to everybody.
I'll find
And
it.
everyone responded.
No.
Yes,
it
they did.
not.
Well, Robert had the chance, I think Robert responded against it.
He did.
Confirm that Robert,
He responded
did
against
not.
it.
Okay.
Yes, he
And
did.
I'll tell you why. Because the law says that I was lawfully holding my office until somebody challenged it. And you did not come to me. In fact, that was the point from the beginning. Not only that, but if you care to look under, I'm not done, Chapter 1 also says under Co-Warrant Article 41, says the exact same thing. This is not to supplant the fact that that person stays in office until that office is challenged. You 3, whoever the council decided, not the whole council, a portion of the council decided that they were going to take action that was against the law. So at the end of the day, I still should have been asked, and I was not.
so now please respect the fact that when I speak that you don't interrupt me because I didn't interrupt you
I
and stuff.
appreciate that.
Okay? We did what we thought we'd do. We're not attorneys in this. In fact, if you even look at yesterday's meeting where the judge was hearing the dismissal that you're asking for of the quo warranto, which is not to the public, just to be confirmed, this is not costing the village a dime. The
That's
quo
not
warranto,
true.
it is not.
Point of information.
No, it's,
Not true.
it is,
Point of
we are not
information.
charging
That's
that
not
and
true.
stuff. What we did is we didn't know
We'll get to
what
that.
action to take. And again, you're interrupting, let me just point that out.
I have the right to
Yeah,
point
you,
it, to make a point of
exactly, my
information.
point is
have
I
the
let
right.
you speak and you're not letting me
No.
speak. So we
Follow the
took,
rules of
we
procedure.
are not attorneys.
Point of information.
We are not attorneys. We reached out through which we are allowed to do through our rules, through a straw poll. We gave the direction to the administrator to take action and learn about it. So she did her due diligence and presented us with how this needed to take place. And then from that point, we took action. In fact, I'd like to point out that, I mean, this legal cost is.
Can you make one
that-
point at a time so that we
well,
can? I
well,
can keep
okay,
track?
so go
If you don't
ahead.
mind, please.
Feel free to combat that.
Could you? I'd like to. Can you just tell me the rule that you guys are referring to once again, please?
26.
Sorry.
26. It's right under the red D that you guys tabled.
This rule does not intend to substantiate a process whereby council members poll other council members to initiate an action based on their own polling. Any quorum of council members making decisions and acting outside of a meeting is in direct contradiction to General Statute 160A-71 through 160A-76. Any actions taken outside the meeting must be conducted through vested authority in village staff for the decision to have legal merit. Fine, but that does not say that you, number one, negate all policies that are already in place. By the way, it says vested in the authority that the village staff has. The village staff did not have the authority to spend $17,000, number one. Number two, this also clearly states that the general statutes 160A-71 through 160A-76 still apply, which says that you cannot go ahead and make major decisions outside of a meeting. That is illegal. And I don't care how you dress that up with as many different arguments as you want to make, $17,000 is nowhere. And I looked, I thought, let's give them the benefit of the doubt. I want to understand where it was that you all felt that $17,000 was something that should be just passed without discussion in an open meeting. That's all.
Okay, so what we talked about and what we decided as we were talking individually, never, and for the record, never had an illegal meeting from the May 31st until the July 10th meeting, but we talked individually, consulted with the School of Government on what the process is, what is our next steps, and how do we go about this. Again, all we're doing is trying to, and we looked at it as, why should the village, in fact, we made this argument, why should the village spend a dime on going after you? Because again, we're not attorneys, but we're getting advice from our attorneys in the School of Government. Why should the village constituents and taxpayers spend a dime on saying that you don't deserve it, that seat? It's for you to prove that. So that's why you filed the lawsuit, which we have to defend. We were very cognizant. We were very cognizant of what we were going to be spending, but we did direct the council to kind of say, hey, what are our options here and stuff? And we decided.
Point of information. I don't know what you're saying.
Excuse me. Let me finish.
You said directed the
Excuse
council.
me.
Who?
Let me finish. Okay.
I can't understand what you're saying.
We talked to Melanie individually, and yes, the attorney-client and stuff. And we basically decided to say, okay, what is the process for this to happen? And we determined that the quo warranto. Then we learned that the quo warranto really shouldn't be a village thing, which shouldn't spend. It has to come from a citizen.
That's
so
right.
2 citizens stepped up.
I tried to tell you.
And
That's not
and-
entirely true. The Attorney General said he would be willing
Exactly right.
to give authority to Marvin.
Yes,
But why?
you're correct.
Why create new law on that?
And
Right.
that would be wrong, and I can tell you why. I can probably even pull out the statute. It says that all actions must be taken by a private relator, and then it also says no public funds may be appropriated in the taking of this action.
Right, but-
So I don't know how you would interpret that that's okay, that if the city take action. That doesn't make sense.
Well, we came to that discussion.
Well,
We didn't
she
spend
said
it.
the Attorney General said that he would do it, so now it's not,
Oh.
no, the Attorney General
I
is
didn't know
not
who the
there.
person was you were talking to.
No.
So, and sorry,
I mean, that's,
just,
yeah, that's good.
when she mentioned the name, I don't
Yeah.
know if you're talking about another attorney or if you're talking, who you're talking
No, the
about.
Alan
Attorney General.
Peters, he's right under
Got
the
it.
AG.
Okay.
Yeah, so we got approval from that, and we took action on that immediately, because we were convinced that we didn't want to spend a dime extra on what we didn't have to of village's funds, so two citizens had stepped up and filed a quo warranto. And
You
were
mean,
impressed.
you mean you and Kim?
Yeah.
Just be frank.
Yeah.
You both.
Absolutely,
That's
yeah.
fine.
We were at
And
the-
here's the funny part about this. Everything that you've explained to
I don't
me
think anything's
in
funny
terms
about
of
this.
why, not a problem with me. I have no, fine, you have the majority, you have the votes, but you still have not yet answered the question, which is in play here in terms of process, and what you all talk about being transparency. I have no need to go and rehash through this, but I know it's a sore spot and it's gonna be inevitable. All I am trying to understand is, at what point justify this? I'm not asking about why you made this legal decisions you did, but when it came down to the funds and the financing of $17,000, at what point, or was there any point at which you second guessed and said, you know what? This is not prudent, it's not transparent, it's not responsible. Why would there not have been a meeting to have made sure that that was something openly discussed and then in closed session discussed? Whatever the case is, that's what I'm asking about.
Well, I think we took action with, there's a couple things in play here of the subcommittee, why we had that, which I know you probably take issue with. But all we were trying to do is figure out what we could do, because we didn't believe the action was valid from the get-go, meaning that what the action that you took for so many reasons, which we won't get into, that we weren't going to go down that road. And again, our first thought was, let's spend as less. Now, the one thing I would like to confirm is the $17,000 she's talking about, is that specifically only on?
I don't have the bill, so I don't know. I'll be happy
Okay.
to look at it. I can pull them.
So that is one question I would have. Is it really $17,000? Because I will tell you this.
I don't know. And
for
there's
the
another
record-
law firm involved too, another attorney. It's not
right,
just me.
Right. So for the record,
I've added both of those.
for the record, if we look at all the costs, and I know you're just focusing on the one cost of what we're doing here, and let me just share
No,
with you.
I'm not, don't tell me what I'm doing, you can ask.
Well, you did say you called it from the
No,
May
I-
31st. You said from May 31st
Joe,
to.
part of the problem is that you don't finish a sentence, so when you say you're focusing on the thing,
Well-
I'm left to infer what that means.
Well, okay,
I don't know what you
I'm
mean.
trying to explain to you. You brought up the fact that we spent $17,000 from the May 31st to thing. So I'd like to open up the, and.
July 10th.
To
Thank
July
you.
10th, whenever it
Thank you.
was. I don't have the, I apologize for the dates, but, so we'll look into that. And I would probably challenge that, because I don't think we spent that amount on
I
specifically
can show you this spreadsheet.
doing this, but there's other costs, and we open up to that is since way back in December, and this whole process, and when you sat and the former council allowed you to sit at the table and get into
You
discussion.
didn't allow me, I mean, you made
Well,
the motion, but the law
right.
compelled you to do it.
No, hold on a second.
It's-
I just remember clearly, and so, because people are going to listen to this, but I remember clearly you opining your law views in meetings, open meetings, and Melanie stating, I'm not sure why you need me. And she pulled me aside later and said, Joe.
I'm sorry, what are we talking about now?
This is where some of the cost of where a lot of the public doesn't see, where some of these legal costs up until May 31st, where nobody's recognizing. And I'm just stating for a fact, there's a lot of costs that have come into play with legal fees. One of them being that when prior council allowed you to sit at a meeting and there was a legal issue, and Melanie would basically give her view on it. And then I remember specifically, and I can go back and get you the date and the tape, where you challenged that, and it was the council that agreed with you, and you're not an attorney, and you made the comment, if you remember. I'm not sure
I know
why.
what meeting you're talking
Okay,
about.
all right.
Point of information.
Hold on. I am not finished
I
yet.
have a right to make a point of
You know
information
what?
in the
Let
middle
me-
of an argument.
let me-
If you would, Barbie, please, because I want to be sure that I have the opportunity to correct
You will
facts.
do, when I'm done speaking, you can
And
talk.
all I'm doing
When
is
I'm
point of
done,
information.
fine.
I'm allowed to do
So
that.
my point is where the community doesn't recognize where we spend some of these costs are, it's not just Melody's going to sit back as our attorney and do nothing. She's going to go back and research what she presented to council, and that's not free.
So we had a former council group that would agree with Mary, even though she's not an
That's what didn't
attorney.
happen.
That's,
Point of information.
yeah, well, you had challenged it, you guys were at odds on what the legal.
And you
what
have no
the-
trouble just putting up
excuse
these
me.
allegations without any clarification, no
Excuse me.
time, no date,
Well,
no issue.
no, I'll go
So
find
you're
the
just gonna
time.
go put
I'm
them
just,
out there.
yeah, I'm putting it out there because there's a lot of
This is
things.
why people don't tend to
Here's the
believe
other thing that
because you just
happens.
throw things
So you have every right as a citizen to ask for a public records request. Well, that has involved our attorneys, has it not? In this whole process.
And it should.
And it should. You have every right, and I will tell any community member has every right.
Absolutely.
But it was such a vast, it was such a.
Every community member has that.
Mary, please.
You
I am
haven't
not-
stopped talking, Joe.
I know, and when I'm done, you can
Well,
respond.
so how long is this gonna go on?
I'm not sure. You go on for quite a bit too when
No, I
you
don't.
got
I
when you
have
want
a
your
point.
talking points.
I have one
and
point.
I have many
Finish it.
points.
You-
And I have many points.
You're strung
So
together, I don't know
excuse
where
me,
it is
Mary,
you're
but I have
going.
many points.
We have an agenda item.
So what I'm saying is, and all you're trying to do is confuse the matter. But I'm
No,
going to
I'm
go
not.
through a few
I'm trying to
things
get back
that
to the
cost
agenda item. I've asked
the
one
village
question.
where we don't see these costs. The other thing is we're spending so much time, attorney time,
still
because
asked
we
one
were
question.
looking at memos that were personnel that you guys had to review. It also took a bunch of staff time. So there's a lot of costs that are hidden that because of one person. And again, you have every right
I
to
love how
ask
this
for
is
that
turning into about
and
me.
stuff. But
I'm asking about
where
village
does it end?
business.
What we
Village
did is we
business,
came
you
to the
have made
conclusion.
yourself clear
We came
that
to
you
the
want to make
conclusion.
this an indictment of me. I understand
No, we
that.
came to
That's
the
always been the
conclusion
issue.
through
I'm still
talk-
asking about village
Excuse me,
business,
that's fine, and
of
I'm gonna
which
get to it.
Apparently, you're the
Excuse me,
figurehead. So I
Mary,
would like to
Mary,
get my answer,
Mary,
the question,
please,
to
okay.
my agenda item
Right,
related
and
question.
I'm going on about
It's still
some different
related
things.
to the agenda.
So let me make clear that there have been numerous costs that have been associated, not just focusing on the 17,000, which I'm not even sure is
I
correct.
mean, the cost of doing village business.
Cost of doing, well,
But, I mean, this is getting a little far afield and stuff. I mean, the item on the agenda is the 17,000 from May 31st to July 10th. I mean, all this other stuff, I mean, is all, we can do this forever. I mean, we can go back around and argue and, you know, and I'm not taking any sides because, you know, I think I know, you know, on which side I'm on. But I mean, yeah, I think we need to tone it down, get the best of, you know, we have here and deal with this particular one.
I
You
agree.
know,
Okay.
that's the, you know, that's what's on the agenda. Let's just, you know, because we could, like I said, this could go on.
okay.
I agree.
But anyways, we believed through our rules that we were able to take action on that. And whether the $17,000 is accurate, I'm not saying it is. But it was, we're not attorneys, we needed to figure out, and our whole goal is to not charge the village if we didn't have to, anything. And there was even, when the lawsuit was filed, it was also filed against not only the village, but us individually, which were, you know, I mean, the state statute allows us to be indemnified because I will assure you, we all act in our capacity as council members, not as
Are we still talking
individuals.
about the agenda? 'Cause
Yes.
I thought that.
The $17,000 that you're asking.
No, I don't think you realize to what degree you veer away from the agenda. You are now talking about a lot of other issues and still going sideways.
Okay, so, but I think we have the right, given the rules that she checked, we were able to do it.
So you
The
believe
money,
that's right. I just want to make sure that's what you're saying.
I believe we do, based on the rules that I looked at, Rule 26, that our council has presented, we believed we had the right to move forward because we're not attorneys, we're not going to play one, and we need advice. And they gave us advice, and that advice ended up giving you what you wanted, which was a seat at the table
What I
and a
wanted,
council
point
member.
of information for this
Yeah.
party.
Okay, but we gave you that, and now I'd like to ask you
think
to
I
drop.
wanted this?
You should, sure seems like it.
I hold to my oaths.
But at the end of the day, I would ask you to drop the lawsuit because you are sitting here in the council and you are participating in stuff. So the challenge of are you there legally is a separate issue, not being charged to the village right now because that's all separate. So I think we're justified in spending it. It's unfortunate that it had to get to this point, but it is what it is, and all we're doing is defending ourselves, and she's doing as her role as the village attorney, she's doing what she is being directed
Can I
to
ask a
do.
question now?
Sure.
You said you're defending yourself. What were you defending yourself against?
You, in the lawsuits, you're not only going against the village, but you're calling out each council member individually
Okay,
as well.
I'm gonna give the time dates again. I am only talking about the fees between, at this point.
Okay.
Right, and I'm talking about, I'll make sure you're all clear, I'm
Okay.
talking about all lawyers' fees, not just on any case. I'm just talking about outside of the $250 that we spend on retainer.
Mm-hmm.
I am talking about the $17,000 minus what the administrator already said was going back, that you were all going to be reimbursing. All right, that's what we're
Yeah,
talking
well-
about. No, I'm not done yet.
Okay.
I'm just clarifying the charges.
I'm sorry, you just said reimbursing, I missed.
There was apparently charges from Brow that some that are going to the village, being charged to the village, and then some that as private relators are going to be taking on, right?
For
So
my-
I tried to account for that.
But any bills from them that have to do with Quo Warranto are not coming to the village, those are coming to Joe and I.
My understanding is that, well, there's a few
It says
invoices.
paid on there, that's why.
Yeah, there's a few invoices, just for clarity purposes. My understanding has been that, actually, I'm sorry, I don't have the Brow invoices here, but the Brow was paid from the village up to a certain point.
And I don't mean to cut you off there, but I don't want to lose sight of where I was
Okay.
going.
Sorry, I was
wanna-
just-
No, that's okay. I think that's fair that that get discussed. I just want to make sure that I don't forget, because so much comes at me, that I want to be sure that number one, it's clear what I'm talking about. I'm only talking about the period between May 31st and July 10th. And you, Mr. Mayor, sir, are talking about defending yourself against me. A lawsuit was not waged until July 22nd.
Okay.
Okay, so these fees were not
Okay.
involved, no, not finished yet, were not involved in you defending yourself at all. In fact, they were involved in you saying very clearly, as you stated on July 10th, to pursue litigation against Mary Scoot's appointment. Go read the minutes, it's right there. So, all this money, the $17,000, and I purposely tried to make sure that it's objectively framed. Okay, I understand, sure you have to defend yourself, but at that point I was lodging a complaint
Right.
because as of July 10th, you had taken unlawfully a title away from someone, and I didn't even care so much about that, except that you didn't care about the law. This council didn't seem to care about the law. I said from the beginning, in fact, the
Point of
earliest.
order, if we're,
No problem. June 15th, I think, was the first message from my attorney Dugan. And before that, on June 1st, I sent you all an email. At the bottom, I said, please go to 128-6, which says, I lawfully hold this office until you challenge it. And I said, should you want to challenge it, I'd prefer to work with you. But if you want to challenge it, please refer to this section. I said that right from the beginning.
okay. So, are you in agreement that we as council
Sorry, I'm not
members?
done. I had to take a drink of water. My apologies. So, from that point forward, and that's why I feel that it is fair to lay out just those funds between June 1st, May 31st, whatever you want to call it, June 31st to July 10th, in which there was no defense. Nobody had launched anything against you. In fact, if anything, there was 3 different letters. The first one being saying, look, I hope we can all work together. But if you still want to challenge it, this is the way you should do it. And I was totally understanding that you might do that. So why did the $16,000 come, or $17,000 come out between that period? And you cannot tell me it's in defense of something. You were not defending against anything.
Well, we're defending the village.
There were letters and emails from Chris Dugan, there were letters and emails from the Bland Law Firm, like, the situation was coming to a head. Everyone was trying to figure out what was going on and how this was gonna play out.
But you also made the motions that you were pursuing litigation against me, but you're also saying that no public money was spent, and that's
Right.
not true.
Well, we needed to know what our options were. We talked to
$16,000
we
worth?
needed to know what our options were. Look, we don't know. This is what comes into play. But if there was litigation that we needed to do, we needed to be prepared to do that. But she was doing nothing more than, at our direction, through a straw poll, looking into, okay, is this even, should we even be discussing this because of how everything went down, and is this lawful? I mean, that's a simple question that is going to take a lot of back and forth between individual council members and us. And we all agree that, I think we do, that we have our individual time that was obviously gone beyond, but because of the matter and the seriousness of the matter and the non-transparency of what had transpired on May 31st and how we were trying to get everybody and make the community aware of anything that was going to happen in the meetings and then be held with all these surprises and stuff. Clearly,
I don't know what "in stuff" means. I'm sorry.
well, surprises such as you weren't on the agenda to be sworn in. Ron's resignation wasn't on the agenda for the community. Things like that came. But the bottom line is they were all up, and we questioned all of that because we were like, okay, what does this lead to? What does this lead to? What can they do? What can't they do? And I think there was probably a legal way to go about getting you on and that we could have done nothing about, but we believed that that was not the case, that you basically went around, you broke the rules. And we have a whole list, and yes.
I did. How did I break the rules?
Well, Ron and Robert broke the rules, so we were challenging that. In fact, I would argue that, Ron and Robert swore to defend the Constitution and also to defend the village. However, they state in that May 31st meeting that, we didn't consult with our village attorney. We have our own, hold on. We have our own attorneys. Hold on. Okay, point of information.
Says that.
You're right. But basically you're defending the honor. But for two councilmen to go and not even consult with our own attorney, which by law, if she is our attorney, she would have had to give them the right information.
No, she did not. That's where your point of information.
I would have told everyone how to do it the right way, and we would not be in this.
We would not be in this.
There's a difference between have to and or must, and it would be good to.
Well, because she has to do her duty as a village attorney, and if Robert or Ron took the time to go to her and say, how do we do this legally, we would not be in this mess. Because they chose to go to another attorney, never contacted ours, didn't even want to hear from them when you listened to the tape on May 31st, and yet we are sitting here in this situation because of their actions. We had to take an action and basically...
Tell me when you're ready, because I've got so much there that it's kind of hard to keep track.
Well, we're getting off the topic, but
do you consult the attorney before you make all your decisions?
In everything that has been related to this, I think you and I would agree. What
1 minute ago you said that we're required. She then, of course, backed you up. But
no, if you came to her, if I came to her on a question I had, how do we make this work?
I'm asking the questions and you're not answering my question. So I'm going to have to clarify the question.
You asked the question.
That the council members are obligated to go to the attorney for advice. And so I asked you, should that be true? Have you always...
Not necessarily.
Okay.
I'll answer your question.
Thank you very much.
Not necessarily. However, they clearly, in our view, broke the rule, but they never chose to go to our attorney. They admitted that. So they chose to go to another attorney and do what they thought was right, even though when I discussed with her, there was a process that could have been done that could have allowed you this seat. They chose not to do that, which our argument is why it has put us in this predicament in the beginning. So why not look at them and say, look what you did? Not even, in fact, they were the ones that, quite frankly...
Because, I'll tell you why. Because since May 31st, you have had the majority, correct? I mean, there's been three members, and I'm not trying to slight anyone, I'm just trying to speak fact.
Okay.
You've had 3 members who have essentially said themselves, they are the majority, elections have consequences, they can take action, and it has been completely up to you in terms of how the money is spent, how the resources are allotted, what actions are taken, whether or not they're reasonable, whether or not they're unreasonable, and it's also upon you then to be accountable for those same decisions and responsible for those same things. So it is no problem that you, in some certain ways, the mere fact that you made some of these decisions in 6 weeks. Understandable, you have the votes, you did it. But it is also your responsibility to be accountable for those
Right.
and to be responsible. And yet all I hear is, can you blame the other people?
No.
Nobody held a gun to
That's not what you heard.
3%
We
when
believe-
the money was spent.
Yeah.
Nobody did.
Melanie.
I wasn't here, I didn't have a vote.
Melanie,
I'm just saying, why is it, I'm gonna go back to the issue.
go ahead.
I just wanted
Okay.
to understand
Okay, go ahead.
where you felt entitled to spend upwards of $17,000, excuse me, allergy medicine. I'm gonna go back to the same point. How is it that you felt entitled to spend that money without coming into an open meeting and being, and vetting that with the public? That's all I'm asking.
The bills I've looked
Hold on.
at are $6,628 from May 31st to July 9th.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
$6,628. I was doing math quick, but I have no clue how you are coming up with $17,000 from May 31st till July 10th.
That's what I was
Do you want
going
me
to ask,
Do you want me to tell you?
because I just
Can
tried
I mean, it's done. I don't,
I'm more than happy to have a sincere
because
conversation.
not every
I mean-
entry on the May bill
And I
or
said
the,
that. I'm
right.
not saying, that's why I said I don't want to discuss.
But that's a huge difference. That's
Yeah.
over $10,000 difference.
Well, remember that $250 though is the retainer, which I'm told includes the hour per
No.
council
No,
member.
no, no.
It does not include
It's billed
that?
extra.
Yeah.
It's billed in addition to that.
Okay. So that at the rate of $225?
$225.
So everyone has that hour
Yes.
plus, okay, all right, so that's fair. At the email I got, I read it, I maybe I was.
Yeah, I should have said that, but I may have messed it up, but we'll go back.
Okay, so deduct then the hour that each person was allotted, and quickly add that together, that's about $2,000, not even, it's about $1,500 you can take $1,500 off of the 17, right? So that was part of.
How can you be starting with 17 though? That's what's blowing my mind.
And I'm trying to get there. So keep that in mind, that I would take that off. And again, I am not talking just about legal fees. I'm talking about the fact that that during those months, you would expect the odd person to call, right? You expect up to an hour's worth of people calling. But when you add up all the bills outside the $225 retainer, plus now the amount that each council member can spend for an hour, you're in and around $16,000.
No.
For those 6 weeks.
No, you're not.
Tell me how,
Close.
well, do you want me to tell you which bills I'm adding? Because that will help you?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah,
So I'm taking
I
all the-
just tried to do the math real quick too, so.
So I'm taking the bills from May, oh, actually, I didn't even, sorry, June 1st.
there's three charges on May 31st that I'm
That's $720.
totally willing to throw in there.
$720
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, so, and I didn't have those, but that's fine. So there's June 1st is what I had, just so
That's
you know what I
actually
was
the
adding.
meeting, that was
And
the
I
meeting
took
charge, right?
all the bills from then until July 10th. And I got a total of, again, forgive me on the hourly amount, but just legal fees are $8,595. $7,740 for the month of June, and then $855 for that piece of July.
So you've got 7,990 that ends on 6/29, is
Sorry,
that right?
7,740. Is first.
Oh, take out the
Okay.
flat fee,
Yeah,
right?
just so you know.
Okay.
And then there's 855 for the up to July 10th.
Right.
And so that's just for Cox Law Firm, and that brings me to a total of $8,595.
Okay.
And then I took the Brow Law Firm invoice, and I used the marker that,
But that didn't start till July 11th.
oh. True.
And that's when there was a motion to authorize me to
So it
consult with
was-
another attorney.
So it
And
was
I
like-
got council
So
permission
it's
to
like
do that.
$6,000. I came up with $5,692.50.
Because a lot of this stuff on the June bill too, like dealing with TUPs, and there was
Right.
other issues
I mean, there was one on
that
here
weren't
that,
related to.
correct. Like, there was one phone call that you and I had that were on censure issues that had nothing to do with this issue.
Right.
So, I came up with $5,692.50. That's, so, if you wanna round up to six, so then you take out the, how much did you say, the
$5,000.
The $850 or whatever?
Which is probably for the meeting
For
that
the-
you were there for, at the meeting
No,
on May 31st.
she wasn't there. She
No, I
was on the
wasn't
phone.
All right, so then the way I phrased it has been incorrect, because I'm looking at this,
That started
the Brown
the
Law
11.
Firm as part of
And we did
these
that.
actions.
Yeah.
But you're right, there was a motion on that, you're right. My apologies.
So we're right in around the $5,000 that the administrator
Between
was
5 and
allowed-
6, yeah.
that she's allowed to spend if on a direction on that. So we're not far off. Um,
Okay.
I mean, are we, I totally, if we had spent that much, then without,
My bank account's not showing it.
I mean, I understand, and I will concede that point. Then, but the reality is though still, is that all this was not in defense of anything, right?
No.
The Brown Law Firm.
It
Oh, it's
wasn't in defense of, it wasn't even, I mean, it could, you become part of it, but it wasn't even directed to you. It was the idea that the process that they did, what was the legality of the process they did? And our attorney, I mean, if I wasn't there, I was away from May 3rd, May 28th to July 9th, which is Seattle, but listening to the audio of the May 31st meeting, basically, Melanie called on the phone, and, they tried to have, and basically Robin and Ron, and it's embarrassing to listen to me, they basically told us, shut up and go home, we don't need you,
I specifically asked,
Yeah,
why didn't anyone ask me? And they
attorney, so
said,
she's
we didn't want you to know.
Yeah.
They basically went against whatever the village attorney said, and said, no, we already spoke to somebody, we're doing it this way. You could hang up and go.
And they have a right to do that and spend their own money, but
So now that,
so,
that's the thing, now she
and
said, we have now,
And I understand all that, and it's not, I'm not like I want to take away from you what you
no, but
all
so
feel about that
the fee
meeting.
was expended basically on, how do we, was this done legally? Do we have, because she's saying, our attorney's saying it wasn't done properly. I mean, you got an attorney that said it was, well, that's a legal question, it's not a personal thing, it's a legal question.
I get
So
that.
we
Yeah.
did the research to try and find out if we even had a leg to stand on, or, whatever, and that was the.
But just from my
It
part,
wasn't a defense of us at that point, I mean,
I appreciate you saying that, because what's happened is,
And it wasn't even directed
The word
to
on
you,
the
it was just
street
directed to
was-
the process,
I have a
What word?
letter from the mayor, apparently, it says, from your mayor, telling the public that two things. Number one, all these legal fees are in defense of the village against my lawsuit. That's what's out there. I've got it in print. I'll give you a copy. And then, so I take offense to that because I didn't do anything to offend you. Don't get me wrong, I don't want to detract from the way you feel about what happened on May 31st. But I didn't launch a lawsuit. My lawsuit came afterwards
Right.
because I had no title and I was encouraged. I made the same, I could go on for hours spending
Sure, I'm sure you
reasons, why I felt like I needed to.
Right.
And maybe I need to do
But I
that.
think we answered the question.
Now it's my turn. It seems funny to me, Mr. Mayor, that when you feel the need to kind of go outside the line to explain and justify, we have to sit back and listen. But yet here I am I have that opportunity as well. I'm the only person on the other side, by the way, 3-1. I think I should be allowed at least the opportunity to do what you've been allowed to do, which is explain what you are mischaracterizing
Without being
as
interrupted.
my choice, but I can tolerate a word or two. So the reality is, I want you to understand that at the end of the day, I was also asked to continue. I was also asked by the citizens to say, you know what? You should be there and make sure that you resist. And that's what I've done. That doesn't mean I die for this. I know that you told everyone that I'm insane. Hey, I got it. trust me, I've heard it all. This is a small village, and that apparently
So
that
that's
I
the
wa-
word I used?
Yes,
Insane,
actually
really?
it was.
Interesting.
That I'm crazy was the word I used.
Okay.
That apparently I'm holding on to this because somehow I'm mentally deranged and want control. No, I have a lot of people who I have served over the years, thank God, that they also recognize it back, and they've said, we still believe that you should stay there, and if that's the law, which I've said is the law, then fight it. I've said it from the beginning. Go ahead and fight it. I have no problem with that. By the same token, don't allow yourself to be removed in the interim. I have been very clear about that, but for you to say that I want this and then tell people that I'm crazy, I think needs to be corrected.
Point
in the
of
record.
order, I don't think I told anyone she's crazy.
That's
but,
okay,
you know,
we can-
if you can, apparently there's a tape out there that
That's
someone has to
fine.
be saying.
And then in the meantime, just for the record, I've also, like I said, I've got that letter here. You've said that no public funds were spent, which I understand at some point you all realized that only a private relator could take the case, and I'm glad you finally realized that. But the reality is, there's a lot of funds that were spent that were public funds to get to that point, and it was not done at your personal expense. I'll tell you, my work was done at my personal expense, right? Everything that I had to do too, to understand, do I continue? Do I keep going forward? To what degree do I maintain my oath? To what degree do I maintain, anyway, my sworn oath? The bottom line is, those are personal. I've had to spend that. Nobody else has. So in the interim, you cannot, my opinion, you cannot go ahead and write letters, number one, from saying it's from the mayor without it being sanctioned by the council.
No, I can write as an individual, and
No,
I
you
made
said
it
as
clear.
your mayor. You cannot represent you cannot represent
I'm
the
representing
village
one, I'm
mayor.
speaking for one.
You cannot,
I'm speaking for one.
if you think that's true, that's up to you.
It
But
is.
I've got something
It's my
that says
opinion.
differently.
I'm allowed to have it.
Where you are only allowed the rights that the council provides you. Were you given the right to go and speak to an HOA group and tell them about the money that the village spends and how?
I made it clear to the person I gave that letter to that I was speaking on behalf of myself only.
I read that, it didn't say that.
Okay, well,
It
I
said
apologize.
you had the right to do it because we can speak individually.
Well,
as your mayor.
well, it's calm fears because we don't have a network to get the information out there. But I was just
So
it was asked
are we
to
agreeing
me. It was asked to me to come out. Can you put a letter because there's all this misinformation out there? And I just wrote a letter, and that's what he says. I says keep. I want to make this clear. This is my opinion. As the mayor, it is my opinion.
As your
but
mayor, you said.
as the mayor, it is my opinion that this is what
You didn't say as your
happened.
opinion.
So
You
at
didn't
the
say
end
as
of the
your
day,
didn't.
that was the intent. If it didn't come off that way, but we will clarify it. And I'm clarifying it now. But it's
But
my
you're talking
opinion.
about
It wasn't
misinformation.
sanctioned. It wasn't sanctioned.
Are we on a budget ordinance then?
Yeah,
Yeah.
can we get back to that? Because
But-
I,
Okay,
I was
so-
still trying
so-
to,
okay, so we're-
because we were talking about the idea that what was spent in defense of the village, and all I'm trying to say is that despite the letter misinformation that you apparently have no tolerance for,
It's your opinion.
but the misinformation you sent out was that no public funds were being appropriated and that
Right.
all of the funds that had been spent were in defense of a lawsuit.
Yeah.
So I feel that that is important for me
Okay.
to
You
put
made
in
the point.
record.
Okay.
That's
On
all.
the clarification, yeah, again, the original funds in May to July 10th were largely spent in trying to get a legal, opinion on what's going on here. Again, we have one legal opinion, you have another legal opinion, I mean,
Sure.
attorneys can fight over anything all day long. It's got, we need to know how we get it to a judge, we get it to, how do we get it done that way, and that requires whatever it requires, and again, I don't wanna get into it, but I mean, I feel personally, that the way it was done, the process that Ron and the way they did it was the cause of that. Because they didn't do it, it may be legally, they may have done it right, but it wasn't. We had a thing, and a month before, or 2 months before, and Ron said, well, we don't need this, it's about trust. And they violated, all the trust, you violated, I mean, that was completely violated the transparency to the public. The public had no idea this was coming on. I didn't have any idea of it. None of us, knew that this, Ron was gonna spring this. I left the May 25th budget meeting, everything was fine, or, the 31st, they were gonna have their meeting for the public comment, and they knew I was leaving, everybody knew I was going away for 4 months before that I wouldn't be here for a month.
Not
So,
that
I
it
mean,
matters, they reviewed that, but I'm
Well,
just.
but they can refute all they want, but I mean, it's not a thing, but again, so that, again, they, what, in my mind, what they did caused us to have to do this, that to have to at least, like I said, when they, when they basically told Melanie on the phone, go home, little girl, we don't want to, we don't want to hear what you have to say. I mean, she's the village attorney, I mean, they should have taken some, so they basically went against the village attorney's advice. And
I think
decided
they,
to do it.
and not that, I don't want to
But I'm
disagree.
just saying, so-
They did ask her, because I had to go back and listen too, they did ask for her opinion, and I don't,
Yeah, but-
obviously makes sense. She wasn't prepared to answer
I was
that.
in the car driving.
Yeah, no, I understand.
They asked her opinion on that day, but going up to that point,
No.
they never reached out to
I
her.
think they
this
felt
is
they
all-
had
I mean, it was
wanted to
obviously
pay
all-
for it
it was
separate
obviously
and
all
not charge it to the
pre-planned, it was
village.
all, I mean, even in the, I don't know if it was whatever petition thing, it even has in there that, they had the opportunity to do it on May 31st, when the dispensary was gonna be away. Well, it was like,
No, I know
this
that,
is transparent, this is to the public, this is transparent, so when people talk about transparency, it just gets me a little bit, that,
I'm not gonna dispute anything
so
you're saying.
I'm saying, but the monies that were spent, we felt that at that point, we needed to get legal advice and legal clarification on what, again, because we had you have an opinion, and legal opinions of. That's all I'm saying. It was just, it wasn't.
And I think the
wasn't
numbers
directed
now-
at you, it was directed at the process.
Yes, in the
process.
and I may have misspoke a little bit in that letter and stuff, and I apologize for that, for the record right now, but that was clearly my opinion and what I guess I meant. If I go back and look at it and dice those words together and stuff, it says, we were doing, as Nick said, is, look, we're looking out for what's the best interest, this action happened, do we have an action to take care of that? At the end of the day, I think the challenge that you made, the $17,000, you would agree is not correct. And secondly, we're about $600 over what a administrator would be allowed to spend.
I will
on that.
concede that the way I framed it was not correct. You're right, that it was not in those time dates that I mentioned. I still honestly haven't had enough time to understand what parts are village and what parts are related. But, so no, yes, you're right.
Oh.
That includes the entire Brow
Okay.
law.
Okay.
So that was a
So,
mistake.
hold on, so with that, can I just, so, when it starts on the 11th with the Bro Law Firm, yes, there are quo warranto words on there, and you even said that you told us in an email that that was the way to do it. This was the first opportunity that we had to look into it because I didn't know what it was. I think it's obviously something that's used very limitedly.
It's rare, yeah.
So yes, we did have people do research on it, which yes, the village paid for that. But when it actually came to filing the action, Marvin did not pay and is not paying any money for that. Is that not an accurate statement? So I just want to make sure that, yes, we did research on it because like you said, you told us that's what we should do. We looked into it. And so I think the research part of it, the village, because, Melanie thought that the village could file it. As soon as we found out that the Attorney General, that usually comes from an individual residence, it stopped. Joe and I took that on, so I just want to make sure that that's clear.
And we're
And I understand that, and
personally paying for
You
that.
have you have the majority and the right to investigate it. But I don't think that, again, this is really not political for me. I just want to be sure that it's clear that there's no doubt that to some extent, your case will benefit, right, from the research that was provided by the village. I mean, as you said, it's rare. So very few people would even know where to look if they wanted to challenge a title. And so it's maybe a small parsing of words, but to say that that the village had no part in it whatsoever and no public money was spent, to me doesn't seem wholly accurate. I think it's commendable that when you realized that, you separated and you moved forward. But, I mean, I promise you there'd be very few lawyers who would have known, hey, by the way, Pool Warrento, unless this village paid.
We learned that just yesterday.
Research like that.
To Nick's point, I mean, you know, we look at this. He had mentioned that, well, what started all of this? Okay, it was two council, you want to call them the minority or whatever, but it's two councilmen going basically rogue and taking on their own attorneys, getting their own attorney's advice, and maybe paying for it on their own. I get that.
I think but
then to spring that on to the thing and then go to, and again, I'd point out, and I have the records because everyone's looking at the May 31st meetings. If you went back a month before, I actually time-stamped it where his famous words where we're talking about hiring, firings, and appointments and trying to put a rule into place. It was Ron saying that, Joe, we don't need this rule. This is about trust. And not more than a month later, he comes in and surprises us with his resignation announcement and this appointment and stuff, which is exactly what we just got done talking about. So then when they say, and they look you in the eye and say, this is about trust, and we thought, all of us thought, quite frankly, we were turning a leaf, and then we go a month later and this is sprung on us, surprising us with this, and then they took the action, which is now, as a council, we're like, wow, they talked about trust, they just violated that. Now, do we have any action? It was all in good faith that we didn't believe this whole process that they started on their own with their own attorneys. It was a dereliction, in my view, of their duty to at least, because she would have been required, if there was a legal way to do it, she would have been required to share that with them. And they have every right in their hour conversation that they can have a month. They have every right to call her, I believe, and ask about that question. And you don't have to disclose that to any of us. They can just ask them.
And that's where, and to me, it's not about even arguing. You have to speak about the truth, though. And if you want to talk about the context, because I do, I try to understand everyone's context. But the context was also that had they gone to Melanie at the time, number one, the rule was, and should be, as far as I can read, that if they then ask, right, did you speak to whoever, one of the other council members, she's required to divulge factually what she stated to one member to all members. So I believe that we can't just say they could have gone to Melanie. If they had gone to Melanie, they know that it probably would have gone beyond that, right? She would have shared it. They don't know if they would have gotten impartial advice. I can't, I really should stop there. I can't speak for them. But the reality is, you can't just say if you were in the same boat, and anyone here wanted to get legal advice, let's look at what you've done, for example, the legal subcommittee. You did that, and I think in your letter you admit that you did that to make sure that Robert would be included, right? And that he would not be party to some of those transactions. How is that any different than what they did in the reverse, which is to say, we need legal advice. We can't do this on our own. But if we go to Melanie, we know that likely it's going to be shared before we even decide to do anything. We might not even get impartial advice. That's just the reality.
So you're kind of admitting there that you wanted to do. You're kind of admitting on their behalf that their plan was to always keep this under wrap and not share with the public and not be transparent.
They wanted legal advice.
Yeah. Well. Okay. So then they clearly were not transparent. Something we clearly talked about in the rules about being before.
But you talk about it too, guys. You can't listen. But you can't. Let's be fair to everybody.
I'm trying to.
I'm trying to be fair to you, but you also need to be fair to just the reality of the situation. I get it. Apparently, you were turning over a leaf. Just know that I get that. But you also have to understand to them, it had not been transparent. I mean, again, here I'm in this position where I'm by myself speaking for them, but I just feel like it's fair to put that out there as well. For example, I don't know, and I wasn't around really, so I don't know exactly, but pursuing the Reasons property, for example, or, appointing 3 members to the planning board without anyone having seen those application forms, or again, my termination to them. Honestly, I think they were more upset about it than I was, but the reality was, I get that you were saying you were turning over a new leaf, but it's easy to say, let's turn over a new leaf now, after you'd shoved all the non-transparent
Yes,
items.
with-
Let me
yeah,
finish.
go ahead.
After you've passed all the
Right.
non-transparent items that you wanted, or a good portion of them, and then say, but we want to be transparent.
Right.
That's disingenuous.
Okay, well,
Just
to be fair, and I agree that if you look back in December, that was when we just took office, and yes, we did what prior councils have done and changed the agendas and stuff. But, and you look into January, we talk about being transparent, and that's our goal, to make sure the community knows. So if you go back and look, and I was adamant about, and you guys know this as staff members, about does it reach the 48 hour? Can we get this on where we allow the community the 48 hours?
But wait,
We specifically...
I just don't know what you mean.
Well, I mean, we were talking about transparency, and on the agenda, we talked
even
about in the
today.
January meeting,
No,
way back in
just
January.
Okay, sorry.
We talked about any agenda that giving public the proper notice. And then it got to the point, because if you remember, no one got up in arms, because I used to be able to vote on appointments, hirings, and firings. And what did the prior council do? Right, I know, but I'm pointing out that we tried to be transparent, and then we hear we hear Ron say this is about, just basically trust and respect and stuff, and it's not a month later that they totally throw that up in our face. And more importantly, if you look back at the process of what we've done in the past, is they basically, that was his gift to us before he left, that he did this to us.
I heard that.
And it was his parting gift to us, in my view.
Thank you.
And at the end of the day, we're sitting here going, wow, they again basically gave us one more reason to not necessarily trust them in anything we say. So my answer to that is, do I have to have a conversation with Robert or someone else and stuff when I know he openly says he tapes me? No, I'm going to bring it out in open session like this. I didn't know Nick was going to go against her vote earlier and stuff like that. Let's bring it out in open session. Let's be transparent, but put it on the agenda. Let the community know 48 hours in vote. They didn't do that. At the end of the day, we're off topic to your point. So any other questions on that?
Then what I hear you saying is, have we agreed though that everyone has been non-transparent at one point or another? I mean,
To what point?
I hear you. Can you not hear that they also had reasons
From the
to be-
December meeting, absolutely. I get that. Like, I get that they're pissed off about that. Totally get that. In terms of the Reasons property, I tried to talk to Robert. I talked to
And I
Robert
don't know.
about it.
I probably.
I
shouldn't
talked to
have
Robert about it.
We invited Ron to go over there.
I talked to Ron about it. So I was very transparent about at least looking at that property for town hall. Everybody was on board with it. We did not do anything that all 5 of us were on board with looking at that property for town hall.
And that's good to know. I hate to misspeak because
So-
I also really,
No.
I was detached over
No,
something,
and
and I
that's-
just know that to them, that they felt.
But yes,
the same.
December, I get it. I get where they are. But then as we were moving forward, we especially were all trying to make sure things were on the agenda, to listen to the other side. I listened when we were talking about hiring the clerk in January. So I was trying to extend an olive branch at that point. And then something happened and I was like, man, that's just a kick in the pants to me. So I feel like in January, we all talked about it. We were all trying to move forward. And then, and even like Joe said in the April meeting, Ron said, guys, this is about trust. We're trusting each other. So, fool me once, shame on me, fool me twice, or whatever it is.
Shame on you.
Shame on you.
Fool you once, shame on you. Fool me twice,
yeah.
shame on you for...
Anyway,
I understand that.
but yes, do I understand that they're mad about that? Absolutely, I get that. But
I mean,
we have spent a whole lot of time on this, and I think it's important. But we also need to get business done, and I want to be able to move the business of the village forward. I don't like coming to these meetings and having all this contention. It makes me sick to my stomach. I don't want this. I feel like we've got to be, and I've said this before many times, that we've got to be more respectful to each other. The way that we all talk to each other is horrible. It is horrendous. I don't like it. I don't like contention. I don't like conflict. I think healthy debate is good, but we all need to just, everybody gotta take a breath. I get it. This does not happen. What has happened has never happened before, and it's very contentious, and I get that. But I feel like we've got to move forward. We've got to start getting some stuff done. It's been stagnant. And I'm all for doing that. And until we all know that we've got a court case, and until we know where that's going, we're working together. We've got to work together. You've got to move it forward.
If I can add to that, we have a number of court cases.
Yes.
Okay? 2 from prior when you were employed that are against the village and against you individually. Those are 2 things that the village is defending. Then you have the quo warranto, which is separate. Then you have the lawsuit that you are filing against the village, and there's a whole list of things
Imagine
that
being a
demand.
single person
Okay,
doing that.
yeah, I know. Hey, we're paying for the quo warranto and stuff, but at the end of the day, nobody's going to sign up to become a council member and stuff if we acted as on behalf of council members. So we are indemnified. You are filing a lawsuit. What I'd like to ask you is if you want to cut down on these legal fees, then drop the lawsuit against us. You have your seat. You're sitting here. It's going to be decided in a quo warranto, but you have the seat and you have your voice. Clearly have your voice, and we're giving you the voice. But there's still legal fees that we're going to ongoing. We're going to go to court. We don't know how much that's going to cost going forward, but what is it for? What is your ask? We don't even know what your ask is. Because it's not clear even in there.
No, my attorney will be angry at me for doing this, so sorry, Bo. But the reality is, I did suggest that, and I was advised to wait until the quo warranto was settled, because there was honest fear on their part too, that just, and I'm not saying it's warranted, that no matter which way it went, given what they saw on July 10th, they thought no matter which way this goes, you guys might not honor what the judge says anyway, so just leave it out there.
I don't think we can't. I don't think we can do that.
But that's
we've
what
already
I'm
said
saying.
in open session that look, we will welcome her
They're
if
gonna
she
kill
is
me.
if the quo warranto allows that, then the judge rules in that favor. Hey, we're gonna accept you, but right now, what one of the discussions I think we had is like, look, you have to let her on that seat because we don't want this to keep going on and stuff. Like, we're giving you what you want. You have
Again,
the seat.
with the what you want.
Well, in the sense, okay, there.
Use different words. Please use
I'm
different
sorry
words.
that I'm not using, but we basically gave you the seat. So then all this other stuff that and I understand that if the attorney wants to do that, but just to make the public
You're
clear,
participating.
That's the
you're
thought on it.
you're
You're participating. Better.
I didn't want to pay any more fees either, trust me. And
Right.
that was what was suggested to me.
So then you have the seat. That'll be if you allow the seat is a quo warranto being paid separately by us, but drop the legal fee, drop the legal action against the town, and that's what I'm asking you, because you're sitting here and quite frankly, you've brought up some great points since you've been sitting here and stuff. And Mary, I tell you this, and I say this, there's a lot of work that you've done for this community. I get that and stuff. But, even Nick had a long conversation with you about, giving things a break and you get pulled back in by other people and stuff. We value that, but the problem is now, because of the action that we had to take, it seems like we're buried. Staff is buried. Legal fees are going up because all of the ask, and you have every right to ask for it, don't get me wrong, but all those ask and stuff, the fact that I had to go through my own phone bills and guess what? And black out everything because you don't deserve my mother's phone number and all of that. And I hand that over to you, and I'm thinking, future councilmen, do you really want to have to go and access your personal? No, it costs the village $5,000 some odd to provide everybody with their own council phone numbers because of it's an ass and it's getting out of hand.
Okay.
And we have a duty to this community to move things along, and I can tell you that it's frustrating because we want to hear you, and I want to get things done. And the fact that with Robert about this town hall thing, I think about it. I mean, I thought he's on board that we can start moving this thing, because I just want to know if it's doable, and if we can get it within a certain amount, and be able to do it. We may not even do it, he may not accept the price, and then we're back here and we're moving forward with it. But at the end of the day, all this kind of stuff and all the stuff that's being said to us against us personally, it's just noise, and it's not getting anything done with the thing. So I'll leave that on the table. You obviously are going to take direction from your
just one
legal
thing I have to
team.
clarify though, but can you acknowledge, please, that this is the truth? I had no choice either by that point. I had no choice either except to file if I wanted the law to be followed. I get that you all didn't get that.
Right.
I understand that.
Yes.
But I had no choice at the time it was filed.
I understand.
It was filed long after July 10th.
And in fairness,
22nd or-
after you filed the suit,
I know.
we had the conversation and said, let her sit, and that stops the legal fees on the village part, because we're not contesting, but it keeps going.
I will take it to my attorneys.
Okay, that's all I ask. Thank you.
Discovery's due Wednesday. If you could help us before Wednesday.
I just want to say one thing real fast, not to beat a dead horse, but when I said the lawsuit, maybe I should have clarified research leading up to that. So I want to clarify that. I apologize.
Okay, that's
if it was
fine.
mistaken.
Maybe. And it's been hard even for us to kind of get this in the last week and sort it through.
Yeah, so I apologize on that language. Maybe I should have clarified that a little bit. But moving forward, whether it be legal fees, whether it be engineering costs, public safety, I guess I just need to know where my bounds are, because, for instance, with the public safety fees and the off-duty officers, we potentially are reaching a threshold where we're not exceeding budget authority. But just for sake of legal discussions, if there's $30,000 budgeted in an annual fiscal year, my assumption is I'm okay to use that, not to my discretion, but leading up to where
If it's
it's.
something that we've told you to do, like the officers at the corner, that's your example, then, I mean, yeah.
Okay, I just want to make sure I'm not getting out of line with certain things where y'all want me to bring budget amendments before it gets to a certain point.
I mean, I think if it's something,
I'm not going to exceed budget authority, but
right,
obviously with the public safety fees, we're at the point, percentage-wise, that it's going to end up costing more than we have budgeted, but I'm still trying to work with DOT to maybe get a potential reimbursement or for them to take over some of those fees. So at some point.
I mean, I think if they start approaching that threshold, then we do need to know
Okay.
about it. And then at the very least, then we can try to brainstorm with how we're gonna, like you said, go back to DOT, especially because they said that they were gonna help us out.
I just don't want to get into a situation where.
No, but I think if it starts getting there, then we need to know about it.
Yeah.
So,
And where this is concerned, you've already projected forward, right? From what I
Correct.
understand
For the rest of the year.
and she's overestimated.
And I've overestimated, and it could be less, it could be more, I seriously doubt it's gonna be more.
Okay. So can we do
Is that anything else on that?
Okay. So
Budget
we need,
Okay.
Sorry, I thought Nick was gonna say something earlier. I don't know if, I just saw you were gonna speak and then didn't, so.
No.
all right, so
So we can move on?
Now we need to make a motion to approve this.
Do we need to approve this ordinance or
Oh.
not?
That, I think we beat the dead horse to death enough, and I think I'd like to, I mean, you're sitting now, you're here now, you brought up some good things we've had, I would like to get the meeting where they don't be, where we can now start working on stuff, let the legal thing, whatever, could play out its thing, whatever the decision is, we'll abide by the decision. But I would sort of like to get away from and Rob's not here today, but I mean, I want to sort of get away from the grandstanding and the campaigning that we're doing during a meeting. I mean, it's like, I think all of us should get out of that and just do the business here and, trying to move things forward and be as uncontentious as we can and then work together and, do the best for the village. That's what we signed up to do,
That's right.
So,
Okay.
I would hope that we could all
Thank you, Nick.
turn the page again. if it's possible.
Turn the page.
It's a lot of pages.
all right.
Good work on
So
that.
make a
So
motion.
Make a motion to approve the general fund budget ordinance amendment OR-2018-09-03 legal fees. Further discussion? All's in favor?
Aye.
What was that?
We're waiting.
I know. Okay.
It's affirmative? Okay. Motion passes. Next up is consider trademark submittal of village logo. Again, we had noticed during all this process and for the community, there's a lot of information being spread out there, and we're seeing whatever entity is doing this is using our village logo. So we ask the attorney, and maybe you can shed some more light on what we have in place, because what's happening is people are putting stuff out there, and it was apparent in a Twitter account, and I think it was over the Florence issue. Somebody sent out some information, and it had our village seal on it, is my understanding, and it has the address of Eford Park, and it's talking about Florence now, and I'll talk about it later in my comments, but the process was very clear when we declared a state of emergency and how information would travel. I did see one individual in our neighborhood put out on his own Facebook, hey, here's what I heard from DOT and stuff. But this information came out, and they're using our logo, so it's almost looking like it's coming from the village. So the reason for this topic, and it may go down a legal route, is how do we protect that logo where not just anybody can use it?
And originally when the request or idea came up, I reached out to a patent and trademark attorney because I don't pretend to know anything about this. This is not my wheelhouse. In fact, there's a separate patent bar that you have to take to be able to practice this area of law because it's so complicated. And he gave us a quote, an idea of what we have to do, but then the issue came up, well, is that just the phrase around it? Because I've been through this with Stallings. They have Gateway to Union County on their seal, and I knew that their logo had been trademarked, but I think it was more the language and not the actual seal. And so when I had some more conversations with that attorney, we decided, yeah, you can't do the seal, and it would be hard for Village of Marvin, North Carolina, to really, trademark that language. So then we tried to look to see, are there any other enforcement mechanisms or way to control use of that seal? And what I found is there are a few towns, there could be more, these are the ones that I found on Lexis. Davidson, Oak Island, Troutman, all have ordinances that state that the use of the town seal cannot be used without written permission from either the town manager, administrator, board of aldermen, whatever governing body you all want to give that permission to.
Okay.
And then the way to enforce that would be by means of civil penalties, like any other violation of a civil ordinance. I don't think we need to criminalize it. I think we could just enforce it through civil penalties. So under 160A, 194, you've got the authority to do that because you have a duty to, regulate businesses, trades, entertainment, that type of thing. So I think
168, I just can't hear you.
160A, 194. The other ones talk about also 160A, 211 as being kind of the legislative authority, but that's when there used to be a privilege license tax on businesses, and the legislature did away with that. So that's an option if you all want to consider.
Instead of hiring an attorney to.
Well, it doesn't sound like.
I don't think you can. Yeah, I don't.
It's just
the
I
actual
find
seal
that-
because you can't trademark. Like
Right.
United States flag and.
Just so you know, I was curious myself, and I had made copies for you at the last meeting, but this meeting, I forgot to reprint them. But this statute, if you want to look it up, it's USC, 15 USC 1052, says that no trademark by which the goods of the applicant may be distinguished, never mind that part, consists of or comprises of the flag or coat of arms or other insignia of the United States or any state or municipality, or of any foreign nation or any simulation thereof, can be trademarked. That's essentially
So it sounds like the trademark isn't the route to go. It sounds like
Correct.
doing an ordinance.
If they're going to use our seal and use it on some sort of document that is going out to the public, then that would be an ordinance, a violation of it.
Right, where they'd have to get permission
Or
from either the
Facebook.
administrator
Anything.
or the village council to use it.
Yeah, because there's one there's a Facebook page and it says like what it is. It says it's a government entity and it has like this address, this phone number.
Yeah, and Marvin, there's a Facebook page, Marvin Village News, which has our logo on it. Also has the Village Hall address and the Village Hall phone number.
Yeah.
And
And it says
a
government.
governmental agency.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I'm
And it's
talking about.
really not you know, not
It's
by
not,
us.
because it's not, I mean,
So I don't know if anybody knows who's doing it or whatever,
I've heard
That's not-
Davidson has had issues with this. I have not reached out to Cindy Reed, their attorney. I know her, but theirs is pretty extreme. Theirs says the name Davidson cannot be used either, which I don't know how you enforce that. But they've,
neighbor could do.
yeah, I know.
What if your last name is Davidson?
I think as
I don't think we need to go that far, but I
Right.
mean, I mean, because I've had people send me this stuff and they're like, is this from you, is this from the village?
No,
And I'm
it
like,
creates
no,
confusion.
It does,
Yes.
and I think if we've
And
got-
it can be dangerous too, if especially in a state of an emergency and how things went and stuff going out there.
Yeah.
And
Right.
like, it's making it look like it's from us when there was clearly a process of how information was going to be sent out. And then we still have that challenge as staff members and council is like, boy, we'd like to respond to this. Is there a quick way, through a straw poll or something that, let's not call a meeting just to say, let's put this blurb out. They go, hey, if somebody writes something up and staff, Christina, you send it to all of us and get a straw poll. You guys good with this letter? Go out. It's a quicker way to react to situations like happened with Florence or anything that's out there and stuff. And it's a thumbs up or whatever, but and majority rules in that part. But it's just, it can be dangerous. I mean, and we just need to, I don't know if we can know, do we know who that entity is? Can we go and ask them to stop and see, can you even respond to this?
yeah.
You know?
I mean, that would be the first step to see, if they're not willing to stop, then you can consider,
Yeah, I mean,
adopting an
I would
ordinance.
just like them to take it down, or, if whoever's doing it, again, like I said, they're using our logo, they're using our address, they're using our phone number to say they're a governmental agency. And it's obviously, if you read it, it's obviously directed against the majority of council now, what's going on. So, I mean, it's kind of, I would be happy to just, if whoever is doing it, or whoever knows somebody's doing it, maybe say, hey, you know what?
I think there's a fine line though between talking about the logo and talking about First Amendment, right? I mean,
Well,
I
no,
think
but I'm saying,
just wanted to
but
get
they're, whoever's putting, I'm saying whoever's doing this is obviously,
Oh, I see what you're saying.
yeah, so.
Yeah,
anybody
they're
knows who
using
is.
it, they're using
I mean,
the
they can put it
logo to
on-
make
they
it
can put it
sound
on the
like it's
website.
official, but then if
Are
you
talking
read,
against yourselves?
if you read it, there's propaganda in there, which is what, I try to write something that gets their approval. We don't want any propaganda, we just want the facts and stuff, so.
Again,
Yeah, but
they
I
can
don't
put
wanna
it- they
go,
can put
that's
it their own-
honestly, like, I don't feel like we should go, I understand the logo discussion, but I understand your point. I just don't want to be characterizing what other people are saying, whether.
They have a right to say what they want to
Yeah,
say,
I'm
but
just
then when
saying,
they
but
use that village
Not with that.
logo, it makes it.
They could make another webpage, another Facebook page and say whatever they want. I mean, but, the one that has
Yeah, just not
Marvin
have
Village, and
Marvin,
our logo and
our
the
address.
town hall address and the town hall phone number, and governmental agency,
That makes sense to me,
Right.
sure.
Do we know who's doing it? Do you know? You don't know?
I know people who are involved, but I don't know exactly who's doing it.
If they could be, it's like I said,
Well, if you know people who are involved, can you ask them to not?
Yeah.
I mean, because Robert's not here, we'd want to ask him the same question if he's involved
I
in
don't
it
know
and
who's
stuff.
doing it.
I'll be honest with you, part of me doesn't want to really get involved with it, but,
well, we don't want to get involved with it either. That's why, rather than having to go through legal things with it, I just don't need.
Maybe it's just a simple ask, a nice ask is, look, say what you want to say, but
Make another
don't
website.
use our logo, and then I think we still go forward with some sort of
Or-
I have more
ordinance.
information. The
Okay.
trademark attorney, Stephen Ashley, just sent me this email at 12:33 today. He says the case law is not clear on this issue. Attached is a recent case in which the Federal Circuit addressed this issue. It held that a city could not get a trademark registration for its seal, but also said a city may be able to protect its seal under 15 U.S.C. 1125, which is the statute providing for federal actions for infringement of unregistered marks. He could not find any North Carolina cases dealing with the issue, but trademark rights can be based on North Carolina common law, and there's unfair competition under NCGS 75-1.1.
the only two pieces I read, because I'm curious usually, were in New Jersey, there was a case where someone had done.
Union County, New Jersey, it happened to be right.
Oh, yeah,
Same
that's
case,
right,
yeah.
same case, where they had taken it and sort of done a spin on the seal, and that was protected. However, there was another argument saying that if you were using the seal to make money or trade, that was a different type of violation. So I don't know if that applies.
I mean, it's just, it feels misleading. I mean,
Yeah.
you talked to a gentleman who posted it on Nextdoor, and the person kept asking Marvin Village News who they were, and they wouldn't tell him. And it just, like, to me, it's just like, I mean.
All I can tell you is that one person who I know is involved, and there's no one in this room, did talk about the fact that the logo was on the agenda, and who knows,
Yeah.
But it's not even the logo, it's that it states on Facebook, it's a government entity. It
And it
has
has
this
this
address,
address
it has
and
this
this phone
phone
number.
number. Like, that needs to, I mean, that is intentionally misleading the public that they are affiliated
Clearly.
with the municipality. So, that, to me, that's not
And they wanna
transparent.
put it, I don't, they wanna take, I mean, if they wanna put it on, a website, you know, Marvin, something smells of Marvin or something, that's fine.
And if they
I
don't like
don't
to
have
say
a problem with
that
somebody writing me First Amendment, you know, they're free.
Right, that's right, I will.
Is it you?
I just
I
don't feel
said, look, I don't-
under the way it's posted,
Yeah,
it's.
I promised them that, you know, in terms of the First Amendment, I would do my best to respect that.
I'm fine with that. My thing is, it feels like it is intentionally trying to mislead the public that this is officially coming from Marvin. And to me, that's just not.
And
That's not
the
okay.
information I have is that we do have an argument that it's a common law trademark. So I
Okay.
think we can write a cease and desist letter under that theory.
And we
Or
will-
we could just ask them
Can
to stop.
we even respond
Or
to
we-
that Facebook? Or
Yeah, or
whatever?
we can, you
You
know,
guys-
I think we need to
consider
do
doing
that.
an ordinance
But
too.
I think we need to do both. I think that's a good
I
idea.
think the direction we'll take is to
Have-
probably have an
Hold on.
ordinance
I
in
would,
place.
you know, if they wanna make it a website, you know, they have a right to say whatever they want, I think.
Right. That's not my problem. My problem is that it feels like, because people are like, is this coming from the village? Why are they saying bad things about you? So, anyway,
I have no doubt, I'm sure they'll listen to what's being said, that I know for sure, because it obviously caught their attention, so.
But
all right.
in the end, I think we still probably move forward with some sort of
Then do
ordinance.
you do
to
the
have it.
ordinance?
Yeah.
Oh, I
You
can.
write it up.
Okay. So can we direct you to?
Would you definitely want to do an ordinance, or do you want to try a cease and desist letter first, or do you just want to
I mean,
ask
I
a
think-
simple ask?
Well, anybody, we don't know who else is gonna come on and if that,
Right,
well,
if it's
they're
gonna
using that
continue to do
logo
it,
and it's
then-
like, well, I could use
okay.
it too, so
Yeah.
we might as well have an
I
ordinance.
definitely think we need to have the ordinance
ordinance, right,
and
Is the, in all seriousness though, the ordinance is enforceable? I've never heard of that.
civil.
Yeah, civil penalties. I mean, there's 3 towns doing it. I don't have, is there case law on it? No.
Should we check to be sure?
There's no case law on it. I checked.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'm just curious.
Yeah.
I was looking around too to try to figure out.
I mean, hopefully,
I
no
mean, we've
one,
got like a tree ordinance, let's have a logo ordinance.
Yeah.
Okay,
I mean, I think that's the first thing we want to
Yeah.
do, rather than get into.
Let's
like
do
I
that
said,
before we do trademarks.
Yeah, before we start getting.
And then if you can, that'd be great.
yeah,
It
yeah.
was discussed.
Yeah.
do you guys want to give the permission to use the logo, or do you want it to be the administrator? Or do you want it to be an or situation?
Wait, what?
In the ordinance, do you want it,
Oh,
I think they
Don't
need
you-
to bring it before us. if
Yeah.
it's- Because we don't know who
I
might
agree.
use it, and so
Yeah.
have you
written
decide.
permission from the village council?
Right, yeah. And now they can,
do we need to vote on this or can we?
It has to be in writing before you can adopt
Yeah,
it.
then-
No,
I just
mean-
want to know
I
how
mean,
to craft
Do
it.
we need to
yeah.
vote to ask you to do this, to direct you to do this?
You can direct me. You can
Okay.
consensus, you can direct me to do it.
Are we good with that?
so, yes, she's going to write that up.
Do it.
Okay. All right. Moving forward.
If you have on anything else with that one? No.
Discussing consideration, this is new business deeds, discussions, consideration of attorney-client privilege, current legal services, fair legal representation for citizens and members of council.
Actually, this might seem strange after the number of times it's been tabled, but is anyone opposed to tabling these last 3 items? Not for any other reason other than, I don't know about you, but I'm kind of tired. And I don't know if there's anything pressing, some of the things, I don't know if I should speak or not speak, but there's only 1 item on there. I feel like maybe we should discuss. I think we probably solved some of those things today, but.
Which
so
item?
The first one, right? The
D.
attorney. Isn't that the first one that's on?
I'd love to get that over
Can
with.
can we knock that out? Because the E and F I get, I mean, I'd, be open to anything
Let me
we
go- Sorry, I have
discussed.
to catch up. I lost my spot here in my agenda packet. Sorry. Okay. So I don't know if I was waiting, sorry, you guys were saying you wanted to do it, you wanted to get it out of the way because, sorry, I just wanted to catch up with you.
Well, we thought there was a reason for Melanie to be here for a number of reasons, and obviously she has kind of helped with this process and explained some of the things we talked about, so I'm glad you are here. And the fact that you are here, instead of adding it to the next meeting and stuff, if there's something that needs to be discussed or concerned on that level,
Well, just
we're
to
not sure what that's
clarify,
regarding.
I did say that I was fine tabling this to save money, but then later was told that she was coming for the closed session, so
Right.
she shouldn't have been coming for this, just want to make sure.
No, I know that, but we thought there were other things that
Since
we were
she's
going to be
here.
discussing.
Right, that part I get.
Yeah.
So from that standpoint, the irony, and that's fine, we can keep going. I think the weird part about that is, part of that, yet again, was, for Robert to have some of his questions answered. And so we could, believe it or not, we don't talk very often, and we do, it's sporadic. So I don't know how to represent his concerns, and I don't have to try, but that's the only thing. If you want to proceed, that's fine, let's keep going.
How about if
No,
you
I mean,
represent your concerns, and if
Yeah,
it's something that
alright.
Robert wants to bring up, we can add it
do
to the
later?
agenda
Yeah, that's fair.
and him at the next meeting.
That's a good idea.
Okay, so we'll go through, in fact, if you have it all, everyone has it in front of them, right?
Yep.
Okay, so I'll just jump right forward to C, because a lot of this, when this report was written, my gosh, when was it? August. Some of this has actually just been through time answered. So if you see those bullet points, the engagement of an outside attorney, that's kind of been answered. The organizational structure, I don't know if that's been answered, but it might come under number 4. Legal subcommittee. All right, I'll just go through them. So, organizational structure for administering current village attorney services. So there is, tell me if I've got this right, seems to have been resolved that now that it's going on, this particular contract or whatever it is now under contract with you as private relators and not something that the village is holding on to, right? I was just trying to figure out, honestly, who was directing who and what. I was a little confused when I wrote this.
The only thing that the village should be paying for right now is the suit that you filed against the village and the 3 of us.
Right, and Grove Law
Correct.
Firm is involved in that, but honestly, I've done the majority of the legwork with meeting with them, filing the answer, doing the discovery, and I'm having phone conversations with him, and when it comes down to litigation, he'll be involved, but in terms of doing the legwork of the discovery, that's been me.
Oh, sorry, making sure, they're also working with which lawsuit, which one?
The one, Scoot versus.
The Scoot, they are?
Yes, yes.
Oh, okay, I didn't even know that.
Yeah.
All right.
And I'll note too that I had withheld one of their payments at the last time they had submitted because I wanted to make sure I went through and I had some questions with some things and make sure we were.
And I had the
Completely
emails from the
separate,
AG to justify.
So I guess I do have questions then. So who directs their work? Is that counsel? Is it the attorney? Is it administrator? I just not sure.
It's a co-counsel situation, so I kind of feel like I'm lead counsel and he's my co-counsel.
Okay.
So then, to be clear then, anything that
Or we're both
you
co-counsel.
guys
I
are
don't
talking
care how you
about,
call it.
and if it relates to the Scoot versus the village, that's the reason for the subcommittee, and for the record, you had one meeting?
We've only had one meeting.
We've only had one meeting.
And I
Okay.
don't hopefully anticipate many more.
Right, and so I'm not privy to any of that, nor is Robert, because
No.
Robert, it was kind of a conflict where we'd have to call special meeting or some sort of a thing, so we're trying to get, I guess from your standpoint, it's a way to kind of keep the ball moving without having to go everything before council and stuff.
And I just want you to know, sometimes I really do speak up because I do care about the village putting itself in a bad spot. And so you have to understand that when this came up, the subcommittee, which is sort of the next point, and I said, you guys still have to follow open meeting law. I wasn't even saying it for me. My concern was that, just keep in mind that if the 2 members of the committee end up on the phone call talking about legal fees, that is in and of itself an illegal meeting because quorum is 2, right? And so this is why you have to be careful when you do
But quorum was
this.
3.
Right, but at the subcommittee, if you and Nick are talking about the
I'm
case,
sorry, I didn't.
Right.
I got it.
which we've never had you and Nick in the same room or in the same conversations. I've dealt with Nick individually and I've dealt with you two together.
Oh,
And
sorry.
so to me, it's sort of
Right,
defeated
except for the
purpose.
subcommittee meeting that we had.
Exactly,
That
which
was advertised.
was a meeting, yeah.
That was
Yeah,
advertised,
right.
correct.
But-
I gotcha.
And so you can understand that. To me, I was
Right,
like, well,
sure.
that's a lot of work. I mean, I'm sure the two of you would like to just text an email and not worry about it being an illegal meeting.
Right.
So it seemed to be counter to what you were saying in that meeting, which is we want to get away from calling special meetings.
Not only
And so
that,
it doesn't make any, it didn't really make, I didn't get
but
it.
how could we discuss litigation and exclude Robert and you without the subcommittee, right?
Me, I totally understand.
Right.
Yeah. And
But Robert's gonna tell you everything that's.
Actually, I've told him
gonna
not to
happen.
tell me. And you can believe me or not, but I have told
Well, I
him.
believe you told him that. I don't know
Right.
if I believe
Yeah.
he would follow that.
Right.
And
Right.
so.
And that's why I chose to step out and say, look, just and they chose to be the subcommittee to kind of say, okay, how do we deal with this? It's tricky when you have 5 council members and or 2 of them are on one side, if you will, and the other on the other side, and we're saying, okay, how do you get this done? And I think you said, or brought to us, that was the way to address that.
Right. I mean, you can also do a motion and ask to exclude someone from a closed session, but what if the person
But I mean,
says,
but
no,
this-
I'm
but
not,
this
you
legal-
know?
This legal subcommittee is strictly for that one particular case. It's not,
Right,
we don't discuss anything else. It's not, any illegal things that,
right.
it's specifically for that one.
Right.
Scoop.
It will hopefully dissolve, yeah.
Right.
And I want you to trust me when I say that I get all the angles, I do. But because I might be the only one who puts this perspective forward, I feel like I kind of need to. And it's not even for one person. It's more this idea, no, I tend to be a little idealistic in certain ways. And the idea that, I get it, it's a hard line to walk. But every council member, in my view, who's been elected, right, should have the right to speak up on behalf of their constituents and represent the dissenting view. I mean, that to me is what checks and balances in government are all about. And I understand your perspective in terms of him talking to me, which is why I said, Robert, I don't even want to hear it. And that is, I'll be honest, the hard part for me, because I feel that even if it's him bringing up a point in your closed session meeting that I'm not part of, that helps one person think about it a different way, right? It feels like depriving him of that ability to be part of that conversation is depriving the citizens of their right of their representation. We all know that depending on what it is, there could be the vote this way or that way. He's in the minority, maybe over big issues. I just don't know that I understand why it doesn't feel okay to me.
Right.
And honestly, because of me being here, I felt very guilty that in many ways I was depriving the citizens of the representation, of the minority voice, and him of the ability to get access to services. And that's why this is me, not him. It doesn't feel right.
No, I had chose to just step away from it because I thought, the thing that I would argue if you look at what's going on nationally and stuff in the subcommittee of the Senate with Kavanaugh, I'm sure they're not allowing the Democrats to come in and talk to them about what their strategy is of whatever legal things that they're going to do, and that's in a subcommittee. But I'm sure they're having those meetings talking about
that meeting, right?
talking about strategy. The problem is okay. So without calling a special meeting, do you have individual conversations with that? But if you know that someone in the council that makes the decisions is clearly supporting you, then there's a conflict of interest there, in my view, and that's where you've got where the majority comes in. And now we're saying, okay, why don't we settle this? Again, this all goes away if the suit is dropped. But
you understand what I'm trying to say?
As a subcommittee, we're in a tight spot here.
Because you mentioned this is, I want to make sure I understand where you stand. So when you bring up what's happening in the subcommittee, the judicial system, or judicial committee now, are you saying that that's okay? That you're okay with that kind of division? Because we just talked about transparency and making sure we get along, and then on one hand, and now it seemed to me, and I don't want to infer anything,
right,
that by bringing up that example, you're almost saying, yeah, but look, it's fine.
Well, I
I
mean,
would've-
it's a legal issue and the
You're
majority
entitled.
wants to, you know, is we're trying to take the right steps and do the right things and stuff, but how do we always have to call for a meeting and all the meetings laws if, you know, we have clearly a division on the people who make the votes, because you remember, I don't vote on
Well,
this
and,
stuff.
and with the subcommittee, for Robert to be in there to give the dissenting view or opinion, he's not involved in it. Like, he's not named in it. I mean, yes, he is a council member and the village is being sued. But for us, it was, we're both being sued. We would like to be able to, you know, hear the information and then try to figure out the best steps. And I'm just not sure that having him in there, giving a dissenting view,
Can I clarify something though?
prudent for us.
Because this legal subcommittee was created, yet again, we're getting into that spot. This legal subcommittee was created
No,
long
you're
before
right.
my lawsuit.
No, it was, but
So-
he appointed you, so that, yes.
Oh.
And so that, the
Okay.
legal subcommittee was formed to figure out how in open session,
We-
May
we
10th.
kind of figured out someone was gonna file a lawsuit at some point somehow, right?
But we
This
also,
wasn't gonna be resolved in mediation, it was
Correct.
gonna, a judge is gonna have to
Yeah,
make a
people
decision.
said
And
that.
so I think that was the framework behind it was, okay, a judge
Correct.
is gonna determine this, how are we gonna handle it?
correct.
And I guess I'm not even just talking about the legal subcommittee, although I get, and that's what I'm saying, I get that point of view, it's just, by the same token, it is kind of public money, right? I mean, that's being spent, it's Melanie's time or the outside attorney.
Sure.
And you don't have to agree with me, I'm just saying from a principle standpoint, it just feels like to some extent, whether you work it all out or you talk about it, that he should somehow be involved
Yes.
as a representative of the village.
But to a point of the legal subcommittee, you made a very good point, is the fact that us three are named, and instead of
we'll go back
having,
to-
I know, but these two are named, and we are, as council members, indemnified. And if there's going to be discussion involved, it's the ones who the action is being taken against. And I'm not even in that because that would make a quorum.
But-
So there,
No, but to
Is-
Mary's point, no, yes, but to Mary's point is we did that when we didn't know how to proceed with.
That was at the July 10th meeting.
right, yeah.
So we're not, I mean, Robert appointed Mary, we're not gonna have him in there.
It was more that, not, yeah, because when you go back to this, you know,
Correct.
oh, we're named in it, you're kind of alluding to this other reason.
Correct.
And,
Okay.
and that's,
Now, I don't even think we've met, I mean, we've met once, and that was.
That one, yeah,
To
before,
do the quo warranto, to move that forward, correct?
no, we
I
met
remember.
before a meeting, the meeting on July 10th maybe? Or we,
It was
No,
after July
before
10th
the-
that you had to
after
meet.
it was
So-
prior to
It was in
another
the
meeting.
morning. It was a morning meeting, I thought.
I don't,
Maybe
No,
before.
it was after, it was after your suit, because it was at the beginning, it was in the beginning of
yeah, it was
August.
after the lawsuit had been
Yeah,
served.
and that's why we met.
So-
But that was the first time we met. That was the
so is
first
it
time
being
we
used
met.
for both things now?
No, we've only met
No.
once, and it
Oh,
was
gosh,
only to
no.
talk about the suit.
Yeah, Nick's not
Yes.
involved in the quo warranto at all.
I'm
No.
involved.
And only, you know, maybe you see where I am, because it was at the July 10th meeting when you guys were talking about proceeding with that,
Mhm.
that it was developed, so I get that reason now. Okay, so if he was appointed, it makes sense that maybe he might not be involved. And I don't even know what to say to you, except that it just didn't feel right, and I'll leave it there. I wanted to be sure that he still, you know, it doesn't really apply to me. I feel like those things that I've had to ask, I've written you emails, you've replied, it hasn't been an issue. I don't know if everybody's getting, you know, the legal services, is there any policy I should
he
know about?
hasn't-
What should-
I've seen emails because I'm doing the discovery where Robert's saying I'm not returning his calls, I'm not responding, and that's not true. I mean, I called him, his voicemail was full, I followed up with an email and said, Robert, I called you, your voicemail's full, set out the answer, replies to emails. The deed was recorded that day, remember we were in the meeting, or maybe it was the next morning if that was a night meeting.
It was a night meeting.
Sent him the deed, made sure he was the first one, sent him the deed right away. So I'm like, what I'm not gonna do, and I made this mistake previously, is I'm here to answer legal questions, do legal work. You've asked me legal issues, I answered you. Robert's not here to defend himself, I understand that, and he can
Yeah,
ask you
that's
the
why I
next
feel
meeting,
bad.
is, what did Nick say to you? What did Kim say to you? What did Joe say to you? Like, I'm not a puppet. I'm not here to repeat every single conversation. I'm here for my legal knowledge, right? And those types of skills. And I'm not playing that game. And if Robert wants to play that game, I'm not answering those questions.
But you will answer a question if Robert says, did you and Joe talk about XYZ legal issue, then you would answer that
Yes.
question.
Yes.
Correct. But it's gotta be a specific question,
Yes.
it's not just a blanket.
Not just, would you talk about with them? Yeah.
Okay, so and that's where it's been, honestly, is a lot of this is just general, I don't know what I don't know. So I thought, well, let me throw this out there and understand, has something changed? Could I still come to a question? You kind of answered that for me. I figured I'll just write it and see
Yeah,
what happens.
no, I'm happy to answer any, I'm not gonna answer anything dealing with a pending lawsuit,
No,
but
and I wouldn't
anything
ask
outside
you.
of that, of course.
Yeah, I wouldn't ask that. So honestly, the legal subcommittee, I wanted to be sure there were, that you had a general rules procedure. It doesn't even sound like you're really meeting. I'm not really sure what the status of that is, but,
We're
No.
reading.
Yeah, I don't know that we'll need another one.
okay. And that kind of is tied to this idea that, the structure idea, like whether it was the administrator and you proceeding with expenditures, I was just very confused. I think you answered it before, but you're saying co-counsel, that the two of you and the outside counsel are acting as co-counsel? is that right?
Correct.
Okay.
Part of the reason is because your attorneys told me they wouldn't even send me the discovery in Word format saying that I was disqualified and I was a witness. So I mean, I had to bring someone in so like I can get them to respond, so.
Anything about that, but honestly, I haven't, since it's been launched, I've kind of stepped away other than saying, hey, can we drop it now? And they said it's probably not a good idea. There's been enough going on, quite frankly, enough going on in one, it's hard to keep up myself, so. Back to this, policies, that's it. I mean, it sounds to me like as long as it's not about the lawsuit, is that kind of where you guys stand? If it's not about the court warrant or the lawsuit, then
Absolutely.
you will involve Robert?
Absolutely, yeah.
But in the meantime,
That's the only thing that
The only
was,
thing we-
And I'm not involved in the quo warranto at all.
Yeah, she's not.
okay.
And we- and
I
we're
think
not-
that's
I'm not
right.
involved in
Yeah.
it either, so we don't talk about
Yeah.
the whole article either.
I honestly, and that's the thing, it's hard for me because I want to talk about it in general. I'm not even sure I really want to get down to the case because it may seem like that's what I care about. I don't. I really just want to be sure that I understand how this is working.
We're trying to be very careful to do it properly, and to make sure everything's documented and above board.
And that's all I've said my piece about Robert and him being included to the extent that he can be in the dissenting voice, and that's all I can do is put that on the table.
again, I'm great with nice, healthy debate.
Yeah, that's what I.
And if Robert has any questions, then just let's put it on the October meeting. If he has any other
Yeah,
questions,
if
so we
that's-
didn't touch base on, I'm totally fine with that,
I
but,
really didn't.
so,
I really didn't.
You'll
okay.
let me know if
Um,
carried over.
In fact, that's actually the last thing that happened is I mentioned this to him and I said, hey, should we do this at the meeting? And when I said, no, I don't want to spend money. That was the last thing I said to him was, I'll just have them table it. So he didn't even know necessarily that we were going to move forward with it today.
So after you talk with him, just let me know if I need to carry it over.
Okay.
The only caveat, though, is I said I'd answer Robert's questions. If Robert asks me something about legal theories or this or that, I'm going to look to the majority to say, do you want me to answer that or not? Because it's the board's privilege, but the board kind of has to waive that. So it's not just, here's everything that's been done in the case. Like, the majority would have to give me permission.
And this is what's, and I don't mean to go backwards, but it does bring up an interesting question. Like we were talking about earlier, right? Well, why didn't you go to our village attorney? Why didn't they go to our village attorney and ask? But I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it. I'm just exploring the different theories out there. That, on the other hand, then when you say, well, I have to go to the council and get the majority to agree to that, you can see that's exactly what I was talking about before. Because if a minority goes to the council, I'm not saying it's right or wrong, and she says, well, I have to go to the majority to be sure that it's okay to do that.
I'm talking about dealing with this
So
lawsuit.
you're talking about the old.
Oh,
Yeah,
just
I'm
this
just
lawsuit.
lawsuit, absolutely.
Oh.
Oh, yeah, no, if he has a
Oh.
question about,
Oh, okay.
a
Sorry.
real estate or zoning issue, I'm not
Oh.
gonna do, if it's about, I'm saying the lawsuit.
Okay, got it. All right, sorry, I thought you meant just.
No.
All right, okay.
I know, I was like, wait, stop.
Yeah,
I was like,
no.
stop.
Sorry.
And so other than that, I would if you're fine with it, I'll let him,
Determine if we want to add that for if he has any other questions and stuff. so.
Yeah, that was pretty
Okay.
much all I had
Okay.
for that.
And then we had a vote to table the other two, and then if that's
I
okay.
don't know, do you want to? Or I didn't.
Because we got to move into closed session real quick to,
And I gotta get my kid off the bus. in
right,
an hour, so.
yeah.
I'm like, it's
And I don't mean to keep putting this off, but I read everything that you were providing. I'm not sure it was so different than what we already have in place.
I went through it. So maybe if
You
it's
did.
okay, can I fit in a quick update?
Okay.
Just so you know what I've done on them since then. Where am I, what's the next one?
E.
E is discussion, consideration, transparent
Right.
purchasing.
So I did do
procurement.
a side-by-side comparison. Actually, I have notes here somewhere. Bottom line is it didn't cover the same types of things. It essentially talked about signing authority, the village purchasing policy, because I was very excited when I first saw it. It's like, oh, well, you don't have to do anything. But it covers signing authority, it covers this little clause about the finance officer being able to hire the auditor. It puts in procedures for reviewing contracts and renewing contracts. And it also, like I was mentioning, puts out signing authority, whether it's the mayor, the administrator, both. Other than that, and $5,000 minimum, but that's about it.
So if we can take those differences to what you're saying that we should have and stuff, can we present those to us for the October meeting, and then we look at it and say if we're okay with it and everything's the same, and to me, doesn't need to be any discussion about it. If it's something that we all agree, we can come
That's a good
prepared for it.
point.
Because I don't know what the difference is, what you're saying right now to us, to what we have in place, but if that can be bullet pointed
Or
and saying,
redlined.
or redlined, and saying, okay, so for our next meeting, it could be a very quick discussion. Nick, you're good with it? Kim?
If they're fine with it.
I mean,
Yeah.
like I'm just looking at this and like 3 quote rule. That's what I do at my house. So I think it's just prudent to always get 3 quotes. I mean, you may not take the cheapest one, but so
But if these rules aren't part of our rules,
then I think these
then
are
we
good
should
rules.
add,
Yes,
yeah.
absolutely.
So I'd like to see whatever's different
You're
that
okay
you
if we draft
discovered.
something,
Yep.
bring it?
Whatever's different that you discovered, and we look at it and say, that makes sense, boom, 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 and we get through that
Okay.
really quickly.
Yeah, that's good.
Same for the conflict of interest, which we all, just from an ethics standpoint, we have to take an ethics class, and if you end
Yeah,
up
have we all
getting.
taken those?
it-
I have to do it and Robert
Yeah,
has
you would
to.
have to do it, and
I
Robert
have
would
a
have to
year,
do
Robert
it.
I think has.
Robert, there's not many more classes left. I
Robert
don't
has
think.
until December
You
31st.
could do it online, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that was his plan.
That's what I did. So, but anyway, so that, same thing with that, but we all understand the conflict. If there is, you're supposed to recuse yourself and.
So is there big differences from what did you side by side them?
Yeah, and I'll even say that maybe the way, once I really started to break it down, I realized it's not so much the conflict of interest policy as it is what they call a disclosure form. And our disclosure form is kind of silly and almost pointless because it says, well, do you have any businesses in Marvin? Well, Marvin doesn't have any businesses, so almost everyone can answer no to that. And I looked at a couple of other places, and they're better examples out there. So I wanted to at least explore the idea of doing something a little more.
You may not know this, but when you, and Lanny and I always had an issue with this, God bless his soul, but when you get on a committee, a CRTPO committee and stuff, we have to disclose, and they literally want every holding I have and stuff, and it's, my investments are in a blind trust
Yeah, that's what they were
that I don't
asking
even
for.
control, but, I have a whole listing that's on record with the only thing I think that's local. In fact, I told our investment planner, I said, please don't do anything related to North Carolina bonds. Because it just, even though it's part of the portfolio, it's like, I just told them going forward, it's, because I'm on this committee that we don't really even have any power. And I'm the alternate,
Yeah,
and which,
Which committee is this? Is this
CRTPO, the road.
Charter Regional
Oh.
So you have to disclose, but any committee that you're on or you're signed up for, that you have to disclose that with the state.
Yeah, that's what it's saying.
And it's a very long process, but I keep renewing it, and it's basically, a disclosure of what you're doing, so there's no
Right.
conflict of interest in any manner,
Well,
so.
and I think if it needs to be more detailed, I'm not in it for the money, so if we need to disclose stuff, then let's,
We can make it as detailed as we want.
yeah.
Well, and you know, I
And
don't
it's-
even know how
it's-
far, but
right.
when I looked at that compared to what I was seeing, I was like, this is like
Well,
useless.
I think in the ethics thing, when they talk about conflict of interest and stuff, it's pretty clear. And they give you examples in these classes about, okay, here's situation A. What do you and then there's debate and discussion, and you know whether it's what we did it online. I was asking questions, so it's really good. It puts you in situations where somebody's applying for something. Someone owns a business. It happens to be the sister of a councilman, and you know all these different scenarios and stuff. So that's kind of what the conflict of interest goes through in the ethics part. But there also, if there's more that needs to be disclosed, I have no.
Yeah, it says more, it was more about the disclosure part.
And again, if we can bullet point if we can bullet point the differences and we're okay with it, again, it's a very easy discussion and stuff.
So consent all the way around that we just review and
Yep.
propose?
Yep.
Okay. That's pretty much it.
Okay,
We did it. That's really
good. And then next, I'm going to call for a quick recess because I have to use the bio break here. So, and then we'll get back to review of action items, council comments, and then move into.
Well, hold on, real quick, did you stop it?
Yes. No.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So for information only, are we all good with those being on the next agenda? Yes, great, perfect. Okay, so then we're to review of action items. We'll
Review
get
of
back.
action
Okay,
items,
perfect.
yes. Okay.
Sorry.
Quick little bio break.